Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City Council and Successor Agency to the Redevelopment Agency meeting of Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. I now call the meeting to order. Now, we have a very special guest that's going to be singing our national anthem, a very, very talented artist, Greta Valenti, who's with the band Bo, Gree, and the Apocalypse. Did I get that right? Okay. Now,
Yes.
I'm not going to say we discovered Greta. That would be, she's been discovered before, but Manuel Chavez and I were out one night visiting voters, and we ended up, or visiting residents and constituents, and we ended up at Dick Church's. And if you haven't been to Dick Church's, it's a great place to go, especially on Thursday nights, where they have different artists and musicians playing on the stage. And so Greta was there singing beautifully, and so I asked her to come sing the national anthem. So please stand up and with Greta and sing the national anthem, and then Councilmember Reynolds will give the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I didn't mention either that Brandon accompanied Greta, so let's give it up for Brandon. Beautiful guitar work. Now it's time for our moment of solemn expression, led by Pastor David Mann from Calvary Chapel. Miss Green, would you please take Pastor Mann off mute so he can lead us in a moment of solemn expression?
Mayor, he's not on, so we'll have to, he's not available.
Okay, well, I'll lead us in a moment of solemn expression.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait, we got him? Oh, you guys are lucky. I was about to pray on you. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you so very much. I saw the song being played, but I couldn't hear it. Thank you. Lord, we just lift up this evening's meeting, and Lord, we ask your blessing upon our mayor, the entire city council, our city clerk, city attorney present tonight in this meeting. All the matters, Lord, that will be presented matters, Lord, of decision, and matters, Lord, that will go yet future for the city of Costa Mesa. We pray, Lord, for the police department tonight, our entire police department, all of the fire department, Lord, the water department here in the city of Costa Mesa, all of the workers, Lord, from maintenance to those that are in the offices, in administrations, all the levels of operation. Lord, we pray for the people, the citizens of Costa Mesa, especially tonight. Lord, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and Lord, they all have specific needs, Lord, where they are this evening and in the days ahead. Give the council tonight great wisdom on their discussions and the matters before them. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. They could hear me, but I got nothing, no response.
No, I could hear you. It was really good, Pastor. I was on mute. No, I had some problems, technical problems, but Pastor, it is no reflection on your moment of solemn expression. It was great. Okay, City Clerk, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Chavez?
Here.
Councilmember Gameros?
Here.
Councilmember Harlan?
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Mar? Here. Mayor Stevens?
Here.
And the record will reflect that Councilmember Harper is absent.
Okay, City Attorney, Ms. Barlow, do you have a closed session report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No reportable action was taken in closed session this evening.
All right, wonderful. On with the presentations. We have 4 presentations tonight, but really one of them has 7 presentations within it. So I don't know, you do the math. That's a lot of presentations, and we're very happy to have you all here, and I appreciate you. The first is very important for the city of Costa Mesa. We're going to give the oath of office to our new police chief, Ron Lawrence. Everybody clap. So, Chief, we just met you in closed session. We're very happy to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to say a few words at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. We're just so glad to have such a great turnout this evening. This is a very important evening for us as we welcome our new police chief. I've mentioned to many of you as we've spoken over the last few months after Chief Glass's announcement of his retirement, that the selection of a police chief is one of the most important things that a city manager will ever do and ever engage in. And so this is a process that we entered into with a lot of forethought and a lot of comprehensive planning and thinking in advance of what kind of leader it is that we want to have lead our police department going forward. I want to thank everybody who reached out to me via phone, email, text to share their views. Of course, the mayor and city council have been very supportive, expressing what they believe the needs to be of our community. And then, of course, the men and women of our police department have been instrumental in helping me to decipher what's the kind of leader that we need moving forward and who would be the best person most qualified to lead this department that is of such great importance to us, to the community. And I am just so thrilled to be able to introduce all of you to Police Chief Ron Lawrence this evening and for him to take his oath. His lovely wife, Jennifer, is here as well. You may have seen the press release, but I'll just very briefly just tell you about his background, 31 years experience in law enforcement, the chief at 2 different cities in Northern California, most recently in Citrus Heights as of just a couple of hours ago, I believe, and the city of Rockland as well. Also was the president of the California Police Chiefs Association, and so he was voted unanimously by over 300 other police chiefs in the state to lead them in their deliberations as police chiefs in one of the largest states and economies in the world. And so he's also the sole representative for the state of California for the International Police Chiefs Association. And so someone who's highly regarded in his field, very talented, very dedicated to community policing, And we've talked a lot about the importance of that here in Costa Mesa. And so I'm just thrilled to have you join us, Chief Lawrence. I know that you're going to have an illustrious career with us and that you'll be with the, he promised to stay for some time. And so I'm really happy to have you here this evening. Thankful for the mayor and city council that have also been very supportive. And thank you for everybody in the community that's come out. And of course, all of the men and women in the police department that welcomed you today. And Jennifer, welcome to the family. We look forward to getting to know you better as well. And thank you for your service as a former police officer as well. And so thank you. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you very much. So, Chief, you're there at the podium. So now I'm going to call upon our great city clerk, Brenda Green, to administer the oath. And then your wife, Jennifer, after that, will do the pinning, the badge pinning.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Ronnie Lawrence,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new police chief in the great city of Costa Mesa. Chief Lawrence, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, of course, you've met my lovely wife, Jennifer. She's also my best friend, and as our city manager pointed out, a retired police officer with 18 years. And I want to thank her for joining me on this very fun and exciting journey. She is truly the best wife I could hope for. And I'd also want to introduce to you a lifelong friend of ours, Scotty Wong. He's a retired police lieutenant from Palo Alto. He was the Police Officers Association president in Palo Alto while I was there, as well as the Police Manager Association president. So happy to have him here. He flew all the way in from Reno to join us this evening. I would like to start just by saying a few words of thanks to my boss, our city manager, Lorianne Farrell Harrison, who's given me a lot of exciting opportunities here tonight, and this is one night of many that is going to be exciting for me. Thank you for putting your confidence and your trust in me with the Costa Mesa Police Department. I'll be frank, I would not have taken this job had it not been for the tremendous leadership and track record of our city manager. She's a phenomenal leader, and I look forward to working with you side by side for many years. And our city council, what a fantastic local government here. I've done my research on each one of you, and I'm very excited to work for a great team. I'm a police officer. We do these things. So thank you. Thank you for trusting me with the police department. It's a wonderful staff. I had a great opportunity today to meet many of them. I want to thank Captain Bacala and Captain LaPointe for the onboarding. They've been gracious in helping me get started here. Valerie Sorensen, my executive assistant, has been wonderful, reached out to me many weeks ago and started this process. And Qasim Ali and everybody from Human Resources just did a wonderful job at welcoming me and making sure that I'd have everything that I needed. So it's been a great transition, and I look forward to being your police chief. It's an honor, and my wife and I look forward to being immersed in this community and really being a part of Costa Mesa. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And I'm going to go off script a little bit and give the council an opportunity to just give you a few brief words of welcome. And from my part, as I said, I'm so grateful that you chose Costa Mesa, and I was so impressed by the process that the city manager, Lori Ann Farrell Harrison, put through to come up with you. And I just hope that we'll be able to convince you to be an Angels fan, if not a Dodgers fan. So I know you come from Northern California. So do any of the other council members wish to say anything? Mayor Pro Tem Mar.
Yeah, I just want to echo our words of welcome. Thank you for being here. This community is amazing. I mean, we are so lucky to represent the city, and I think that you're going to find that, the first time you walk into a coffee shop in uniform to, trying to not think about work and having somebody come talk to you in a grocery store. This is an incredibly involved, engaged community, and I can't wait to show it off to you, right? I can't wait for you to check out all of the cool places to eat and come to love it as much as we do. So welcome.
Councilmember Gameros.
As a 40-year resident, I just want to welcome you to our city. After meeting with you briefly and speaking with you, I can tell that our chief here is a family man with strong values, and I think he's going to uphold those values, and you're going to see that reflect in this community and in this city. So thank you, welcome aboard, and I'd also like to welcome your wife as well.
Any other council members? So Councilmember Reynolds.
Chief, I hope you ride a bicycle. And if you don't, we'll teach you how. Over the last couple of years, I've started riding a lot more, as my council members and many residents know, and traffic safety has been a big issue that we're working on, improving the safety of our streets for residents of all ages. And I've learned sort of unexpectedly that it's just a really wonderful way to get to know our city. So I'm looking forward to riding around our city with you to introduce you to the West Side. Welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Harlan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Chief Lawrence, welcome aboard. I know I had the opportunity just to speak with you very briefly before tonight's meeting, but I am very confident in your abilities and your future here. I place a great deal of trust in our city manager and believe our process arrived at the right selection here. So I want to encourage you to get involved in our community. I think there's no doubt that's going to happen. I look forward to introducing you to District 6 and all that we have to offer in the East Side. And to echo some of the comments of Mayor Pro Tem Mar, in as much as our community is amazing and engaged, they're also very demanding, but also very generous. So I look forward for you to get involved in us in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Chief Lawrence, thank you as well for choosing Costa Mesa as your next home and as the police chief. We're a very great city, very dynamic city, and a city always ready to learn and always willing to learn and improve. And I think your skill sets will be a great benefit to our department and to our city as a whole. You bring stability, you bring leadership, you bring a track record of consistently planning for the future. And as I look at our young officers, many whom are from Costa Mesa, many whom want to serve the city they grew up in, I think they'll be well served having you as our chief. So once again, thank you, and we're all happy to have you here.
Okay, now it's time to take some pictures. So we have three groups to take pictures. One is with the council, and the other is with the department directors, and then the third group is the police department command staff. So let's take some pictures.
Time bomb right there.
big of a picture.
Yeah, want to come on down? I only switched steps. Now you wish I was in the photo next to you. Okay, now, command staff.
Sir, how are you?
And the mayor. Oh, me? Yep. Oh, wow.
We're not done yet.
That's it for photos for that, yep. That's it. Good work. Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you for your patience. The pictures, I'm sure, will be wonderful. So now we're to the second presentation of the evening. It's a proclamation for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And of course, this year does mark the 20th anniversary of the attacks at the World Trade Center at the Pentagon. 9/11 is a time to remember the courage and loyalty of so many firefighters, police officers, and first responders who sacrificed to save others, and also of the folks who perished and on that day, and for everybody who sacrificed thereafter in addressing the aftermath. I'd like to do the presentation of the proclamation to Chief Lawrence and Chief Stefano. And I'm just going to read a few of the excerpts from the proclamation. The September 11th resolution recognizes the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks committed against the United States on September 11th, 2001. Nearly 3,000 innocent civilians perished in the heinous attacks of 9/11. 20 years later, the people of the United States of America come together in solidarity as a nation to remember the first responders and civilians whose lives were cut short by these acts of terror. As we come together as a nation to commemorate the events of September 11th, the city of Costa Mesa offers its sincere condolences to the families, friends, and loved ones of the innocent victims of 9/11 and reaffirms that the residents of Costa Mesa will never forget the challenges our country endured on and since September 11th, 2001. So I'm going to present that proclamation, and I would invite the council to come and do a photo with the police chief and our fire chief. I forgot. Sorry, I forgot. All right, I was working on a really good smile too. That's quite something. Okay, this next grouping of presentations really honors and demonstrates the collective effort that the city has with so many different partners to address homelessness in the city. Each of the organizations that we honor tonight played a critical role in the development, implementation, and transition of the city's permanent bridge shelter from Lighthouse Church to the Airway site. These organizations reflect the true spirit of collaboration, creativity, and partnership, and they reflect the spirit of what makes Costa Mesa such a great place to live, work, and play. It is a strong collaboration. Sorry, I'm sticking with the script. It takes a strong collaboration to solve the complexities of homelessness, and only together can we truly be successful. Now, I'd like to recognize and give the floor to Councilmember Gameros to make a statement, in as much as he's the council member from District 2, where our permanent bridge shelter is located. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. You know, my heart goes out to those in need And when I see what our community has done and what I see our civic leaders, law enforcement, and fire department has done, how they come together to embrace this community to help those, I can only say that I'm grateful and I feel honored to be a part of this community and to be a leader that moves forward to try and establish good grounds that our homeless community can hopefully get back on their feet with. So I'll keep this brief. I just want to say thank you to Susan Price for being a great leader and being a great mentor for me and educating me in a lot of things that I really was not aware of and just really didn't see. And I want to thank the city manager for helping to give me some good direction on what to look for and just basically, you know, how to act when it comes to this very sensitive situation with homelessness. So I look forward in the future to trying to help grasp what the needs of our community is, and hopefully we can be successful in creating a new hope for some of these people that need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Gameros. And so what I'd like to do, we've got 6 organizations and a very special individual that we're going to recognize. So when I mention your organization, if you're from that organization, please stand up and be recognized. I'll read a few words about that at the end when we're done with all of the recognition in that vein. So then we'll hand out the official recognitions and we'll take photographs. So the leadoff hitter here is the Lighthouse Church. Will you please stand? Lighthouse Church. So many people, but I want to especially recognize who's standing past Pastor Phil Eiskens. Pastor Phil and his church has provided an amazing service for those most vulnerable among us. By agreeing to be the host of the temporary site, the Lighthouse Church has been critical to the settlement agreement for the city as part of the Catholic worker case. Once those 50 beds were established, our homeless response efforts improved exponentially. We cannot thank the Lighthouse Church enough, and you, Pastor Phil, for your partnership during this critical time. You were flexible to extend the lease when we needed you to do that, when we needed more time to get to the airway shelter. And from the bottom of my heart personally, you know, Pastor Phil, we were in this together, shoulder to shoulder working on this and that lease. I'll never forget that. And you're a true blessing to the city of Costa Mesa and to everyone at the Lighthouse Church. And your sacrifice and your work will never be forgotten. Yeah, yes.
Give me a heads up. Somebody donated a whole box of angel hats to the Lighthouse.
Oh.
Field hats, and I told Valerie I was going to get the police chief a really nice angel hat.
All right, some people watching at home maybe didn't see this, but Pastor Phil says there's a whole box of angel hats that have been donated, so thank you very much. Next up is the great organization of Trellis. Executive Director, my dear friend Ian Stevenson, Isabella Carpenter, who's the Director of Operations and Volunteer Engagement, and John Began, a Director of Outreach. Everything is better when Trellis is involved, and we're better together. They have supported the shelter and have been a strong partner in the network of for homeless solutions since day one. They provide volunteers and create opportunities for success in everything that they do. They're creative, fun, and embody the meaning of collaboration and partnership. They've put out a call to local artists for a mural at the front intake desks of the permanent site, so we could look forward in the very near future to unveiling that mural as selected by the Cultural Arts Committee, but so much you do for this community, and it's appreciated. And by the way, not just with respect to the homeless effort, but Costa Mesa Day, everything you do to bring our neighborhoods closer together and closer to Christ. So thank you very much. That's Trellis. Fresh beginnings. Fresh beginnings includes my good friend Bill Nelson, who's the executive director, Kathy Nelson, who's a controller and works with budgets, Cindy Ostis, the leads the volunteers, Leanne Harlow also leads volunteers, Greg Wangler, volunteer leader, and Jackie Began, volunteer leader. A key partner in the Network for Homeless Solutions, Fresh Beginnings operates with the, and this is the quote, "whatever it takes" motto, has been instrumental and quite frankly inspiring in the implementation and operation of the Airway Commercial Kitchen. Bill Nelson, we thank you for your service, working in partnership with so many others, volunteers, friends, starting with managing the compliance aspects for the county public health department and working to develop the menu, volunteer calendar, food services that our residents speak so highly of. We thank you for your service to the city and your partnership both now and in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, Fresh Beginnings. IKEA, I know where you are. IKEA is such a wonderful corporate partner. I want to single out Brianna Lehman, the store manager, Vanessa Pasillas, the loyalty, her position is loyalty manager, Maggie Holton, Michelle Serta, Franklin Sandoval, Catherine Chavar, and Didi Lopez. This corporate sponsor transformed the permanent site. As it emerged from building construction, IKEA entered the facility and provided interior design features, furnishings, and fine touches to elevate this program to become a welcoming and home-like environment where people feel valued and cared for and have dignity in their journey to recovery, healing, and hope for the future. We, the city of Costa Mesa, cannot thank IKEA enough for the great work they did to make the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter shine bright as a place people will want to enter for compassionate assistance. Thank you very much. I will say one more thing is when Judge Carter and I toured the permanent shelter, he was blown away by the furnishings and blown away by your partnership. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for all you have done and all you will continue to do for this community. You're a truly great community partner. The Costa Mesa Sanitary District. President Bob Uten, who's the funniest president of any sanitary district in California. Vice President Mike Schaefer, Secretary and former Mayor Arlene Schaefer. Mike was also on the council. Director Coach Art Perry, Director Brett Eccles, and staff member Angela Kalunga. Thank you for your $50,000 contribution to the Airway Shelter construction of restrooms. We truly appreciate your generosity and partnership as we work on solution-based approaches that address homelessness. This is actually the second $50,000 contribution from the sanitary district. They also provided the restrooms at the lighthouse site. And I just want to say something off the script. I remember, and you do too, when we were just trying to get those porta potties to help people out. And that didn't go all that well, but you know what? We won in the end because we've done more for that community than we could have even imagined back then. So thank you for your kindness and your generosity in this very difficult situation. You're true partners and true friends. Sixth is Mercy House. Mercy House. My neighbor Larry Haynes, Executive Director, and Sasha Garrett, Program Manager of Shelter Operations. As the operator of the shelter, Mercy House has been an amazing partner in all this work. They launched quickly to open the transitional site, operated it during the pandemic, keeping its staff and residents safe for more than a year. And during that time, they packed up the shelter, helped set up a new one, get the residents prepared for the move, and help this city make the transition, which was fairly seamless because of their work, even though there were so many moving parts along the way. Sasha Garrett, thank you for everything you do for the shelter, the residents, the staff, and our community. Your organization, Mercy House, has been amazing. It has gone beyond, above and beyond during this time, while housing close to 200 people through this process. And I just want to say, the first time I ever met Larry Haynes, he stood up in front of a room we were in, and he said, "Homelessness is a choice. We make the choice, and we can make the choice to end homelessness. And we're getting there because of the partnership that we have." Thank you very much. Finally, we at the city could not have done any of this without Stacy Lumley. Stacy here. In the last 7 years, Stacy Lumley has served the city of Costa Mesa faithfully, with dignity and compassion. She has led the initiative to take on the biggest task to transition the shelter from the Lighthouse Church to Airway Street. For the past 7 years, she has worked with every department, every nonprofit, and every homeless person with integrity and understanding and kindness. She's resourceful, and her skills have housed close to 200 people in just the past 2 years. We publicly recognize you tonight, Stacy, for your service and unwavering dedication to the city. And I just want to say personally, going all the way back to and I can't believe you're going to Texas, because that's where we met, in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas. And we've been working together on this effort ever since, and you were working on it before I got involved. And you are a true servant, and you're going to Texas. She's leaving us. We wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. As I said the other day, Texas just got a little kinder and more compassionate, and I think they could probably use that. So thank you very much, Stacy. Now, what I'd like to do is, we have a lot of different, everybody has a certificate that we've made. So let's bring the council down. We'll give the certificates, and we'll take individual pictures with each group. We'll take photos, and I will not forget my mask.
Lighthouse Church. We're going to go Lighthouse Church first. Pastor Phil, we're going to have you right here next to the mayor. It just looks like it's good. We want him in it. We're gonna get one without and one with. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. One with mom and dad. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Okay.
All right, well done, everybody. Thank you for helping us get through that. Now we only have one more proclamation, and it's to recognize Orange County Public Libraries on its 100-year anniversary. We have here the county librarian, Julie Quillman, and librarian, let's see. Oh, sorry, librarian number 3 from the Donald Dungan Library, Sarita Dangund. Please come to the podium. So they're here to kindly accept our proclamation. At this time, I want to give the floor to Councilmember Reynolds because she is our representative to the Library Advisory Board, a very important countywide board. So Councilmember Reynolds, you have the floor. Oh, except I got to give you the floor. There you go.
Well, 100 years is pretty amazing. And for an institution that was just as important 100 years ago to be just as important, so incredibly important now, and we saw that through its response to the pandemic. I just want to thank you for the service you do. I think probably everybody in this room has a favorite memory in the library and a favorite book that they read and has probably used the library for something beyond just reading and finding books. But I think the way that our public library system responded through the pandemic to provide internet services, informational services, and really stepped into its role as a community service and not just a service to provide reading opportunities is highlights the importance of the libraries and why we should continue to invest in our public library system for 100 more years. So we've had a lot of fun with our libraries here in Costa Mesa with the opening of the new Donald Dungan Library. What a beautiful space, one of my favorite spaces in Costa Mesa. Probably a joy for anyone who gets to work there now, and certainly a joy for everyone who gets to visit. So thank you for your service, and congratulations on 100 years.
And thank you. And we have a proclamation. I just want to read to the public some of the highlights of the proclamation. The City of Costa Mesa recognizes and celebrates the Orange County Public Library 100 years of possibilities. Through its first 100 years, the Orange County Public Libraries has seen many milestones highlighting the library's commitment to Orange County residents. The Orange County Public Library expanded to 32 branches throughout the county, with 2 branches located right here in Costa Mesa, our beautiful Donald Dungan Library at Lions Park, and the Mesa Verde Library in the Mesa Verde part of our city. Here in Costa Mesa, we take pride in all Orange County Public Library's accomplishments in its first century, and we say thank you to all the dedicated staff and volunteers, past and present and future, for their commitment and dedication to our community. And I will say, and now I'm going to recognize a representative, Alex Runegi, who represents Katrina Foley, Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley's office, to present a proclamation, and then we'll all take pictures. But I will say that the library in the city of Costa Mesa is a true partnership between the county and the city. So the city built that and has the land and built that library in Lions Park, and the county runs it. And it is a true partnership. It's a treasured partnership, and I really appreciate it. Now, Alex, you may have the floor to speak about your proclamation, and then we'll take some pictures.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. My name is Alex, and I'm here to represent Supervisor Foley, who unfortunately couldn't make it. On behalf of Orange County 2nd District, we're thrilled to award the certificate recognizing 100 years. Since 1921, the Orange County Library has provided residents the opportunity to learn, grow, and dream. We're looking forward to the next 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now remember your mask. We're going to do one more round of pictures. Actually, why don't we come to the center? All right, great. We've done a lot of presentations. We're not going to adjourn, though. You're not getting off that lightly. So now we're going to move to public comments. Public comments will be heard at this time on matters that are not on the agenda. And you can also comment on items from the consent calendar. Everybody will get 3 minutes maximum to speak, and then they'll be cut off. We'll take the people in the chambers first, and then we'll go to Zoom. To be recognized on Zoom, you can raise your hand through the Zoom feature, or you can push *9, and then when the clerk calls on you, press *6 to speak. So, we have some folks here to speak in the chambers. Flo Martin, you're the leadoff hitter.
Good evening, Council. This little old lady in tennis shoes has been walking the streets of Costa Mesa for 54 years now. And 6 years ago, I was appointed by Council to the Bikeway and Walkability Committee. At that time, 6 years ago, my statement was generally that Costa Mesa, when it came to bikeways and active transportation, was in the Stone Age or the Dark Age. We've come a long way, baby. And I want to thank you. I would like to thank staff, specifically Director of Public Works, Sethuraman, and Jennifer Rosales, Transportation, for all of the forward thinking on their part and their support, and with your support for our new active transportation plan, our upcoming pedestrian plan. It is awesome. And Arliss, I'm looking forward to joining your next bike ride, but not on our tandem. Joe's going to be on a road bike, and I'm going to be on my new e-trike. Yay, hey, hey. On a more serious note, next week marks the 11th anniversary of the death while on duty of Jimmy Owen. You all know my special place, his special place in my heart. He was a paramedic and firefighter who saved my son's life. And I would like everyone in this chamber to stand up and give standing applause to Chief Stefano and our firefighters, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. McDonald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Honorable City Council members. I am Bobby McDonald, and I'm a proud U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran. I'm also a proud and dedicated Valor member. And after the July 1st, 2001 press conference, I was very fortunate to have seen firsthand the pride of a historical, energetic moment that is being unveiled in our community. Up in the hills of Anaheim, as Supervisor Don Wagner, Supervisors Doe, Bartlett, Foley, and Chafee confirmed their commitment to establish a veteran cemetery in the County of Orange. I also watched some of my veteran brothers from all over the county share their support, from the Orange County Veterans Advisory Council, the Orange County Veterans and Military Family Collaborative, Valor, the American Legion, the VFW, AM Vets, the AUSA Vietnam Veterans, and also I received an encouraging approval phone call from the chair of the State California Veterans Board of Directors. Over 154 Orange County veterans organizations and multiple public officials and cities from all over Orange County are supporting our effort to pursue building a veteran cemetery at the Gypsum Canyon site in Anaheim Hills. I was in the Board of Supervisors board meeting a couple of weeks ago to share my appreciation publicly to the board for their dynamic efforts and their positive motivating endeavor to approve $20 million to move our veteran cemetery agenda. I'm here tonight to support and express my appreciation for your resolution to build a veteran cemetery. I'm here also to say thank you, City of Costa Mesa, for all you have done for veterans, especially your support for Heroes Hall and the educational opportunities we feature through the eyes of veterans. And a shout out to the Mayor Pro Tem, Andrea Mayer, for her service in the United States Navy, and your Chief of Staff, Alexander Gonzalez, another U.S. Navy vet. Thank you for helping our veterans today.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Richards. I am not a resident of Costa Mesa, but I spend most of my time across the street as CEO of the OC Fair and Event Center. And I'm here tonight on behalf of our board of directors and our staff to personally thank all of you from Costa Mesa. Mayor John Stevens, Mayor Pro Tem Andrea Marr, council members, staff, and especially the residents of Costa Mesa for supporting and encouraging us in bringing back the OC Fair this year. It was a tremendous fair, and I'm proud to say that the #1 zip code for attending the OC Fair this year was 92626. We know that the OC Fair has an impact on this community. Sometimes it's not always the greatest impact. I call it the TNT impact, that's traffic, noise, and trash. But we made some positive changes that we hope also resulted in some positivity out in the neighborhoods. We've heard very good things about it. We saved a lot of jobs this year. We created thousands of jobs. We put over 400 small business merchants and concessionaires back in business. And we provided some much needed fund to the community, and I can't thank you all enough for your support of the OC Fair. Thank you.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, excuse me, and council members. My name is Elizabeth Jane Naismith Freeman. I live with my wife, Christiane Lehman. We own our house and our business in Costa Mesa. This past July, on an early Friday morning, certain personnel of the code enforcement showed up at my residence to do an unscheduled inspection due to complaints from our neighbors. We have had code enforcement show up multiple times because of these same neighbors, have made numerous reports on us regarding ridiculous accusations regarding us, our dogs, our trailer in our driveway. This time we were not able to fully comply to their demands due to being on the way out the door for work. We then offered them a 3 o'clock time, even though we knew this was just more harassment by our neighbors due to their dislike of our lifestyle. Up until then, we dealt with them as needed, mostly turning the other cheek. We had a civil issue with our neighbors regarding the mutual fence line. They absolutely refused to deal with my wife. They are bullies and obviously have a problem with gays. They convinced code enforcement that we were homing the homeless and burning something that left a chemical smell in our garden, our yard. That was why the fire marshal and an assistant showed up, which made a total of 4 men doing an inspection, which later we found out was not authorized by the code enforcement supervisor. And he wanted us to prove that they were on our property. During this inspection, the code enforcement officers were openly hostile. They went from looking for chemicals to measuring heights and distances of our fence line and all our sheds. They have been in the yard for some time. The lead enforcement officer told us they would get back to us regarding their report the next week. Never came. We called code enforcement and the fire department for a follow-up. We were cleared by the fire department, but we could not get a response from the city council members, the city manager, or the mayor. It wasn't until we started posting the inspection on Nextdoor did we finally get a little response. That is why I'm here tonight. Does code enforcement have any oversight? Why are their employees of Costa Mesa allowed to harass anyone they see fit? Code enforcement made an inappropriate response to a demonstrable false report made by our neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then Alex, Mr. Gonzalez will get your information and we'll follow up with you.
Okay.
He's right there.
Thank you.
Sir, you have the floor.
Hey, good evening. My name is Chris Hoskins. Some of you I've had the pleasure of meeting, but others I haven't had the pleasure yet. The The reason I'm in front of you is because back in 2017, my beloved wife, who's terrifying, but I do love her, she said that I am allowed to live at home, but all my crap had to go. And so I started shopping for a building, and I ended up buying a building at 1966 Newport Boulevard. And it was a homeless encampment, and it was also a major rehab. At one point, it was Newport Carpet and Tile, and then they moved out, and somebody tried to move in and tore up the whole place, and then they went under. So it was a great opportunity, and we've really had a good time of it, actually. It's the world's greatest man cave is kind of the start of it, and my wife actually approves of it. What I'm here for is I actually need your help. I'm moving 3 businesses in there. One business, believe it or not, I make mops and other cleaning tools for all the subways in North America, all the 7-Elevens in North America, and quite a few others. I also own a winery in Paso Robles, and I'd like to start doing wholesale distribution down here in Orange County of our Paso Robles wine. I actually make wine for myself and about 35 other wineries, so we think we can have a pretty good impact. And then last but not least, we'd like to open an exotic car dealership to sell high-end vehicles. So it really should be great fun. What I need help, though, a number of you have already been out to visit. Jeff, good to see you. Mayor Pro Tem, how you doing? And Alex has been really helpful as well. But I'm not quite sure how to go from here's where we're at to we need a variance on this garage that we need to, well, it's not a garage warehouse that we need to have. We think it actually really benefits the city. We've turned our plans in quite a while ago. We think it benefits the city because the neighbors behind us get all kinds of crazy noise from Newport Boulevard. And now if we have this up, they don't have any noise. So they're really supportive and they're terrific. But I'm not quite sure where to go, so I thought I'd just show up and say, I really could use your help, and I'd love it if you guys would stop by. I was going to bring pictures, but then my wife thought I was being obnoxious. So if you come and look at my man cave, it'll be fun. So let's see. I think that's all I have, but I'd love your support if you come on out, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Humphrey.
Good evening, Council. Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. 2 items tonight. First, I'd like to thank staff for the new access to the staff reports and everything that we get to go in the database. It's all, you know, you've got a lot more data you can play with and look at. I would recommend that you put underline under the title of the item so you'll go to the staff report rather than wander through 655 pages to find the staff report. If you click on the actual title of the item, it will go there, but it's not underlined right now, so nobody knows to click on the non-underlined item where everything else you can click on is underlined and you can see it. So other than that, it's great to be able to have that process that way, and I would recommend that change for that. Secondarily, we've talked about Measure Y and the upcoming election for 1 Metro West. And I hear all this about we don't have to do anything until sometime next summer. Well, unfortunately, Measure Y requires that you provide an explanation that will wind up on the ballot mailer that tells everybody what's going on, the normal thing you get in the mail. And that takes time to generate. That's not a simple thing to just put the probably 6,000 pages of documentation, CEQA and what have you. It needs to be an explanation from the city about exactly what this project is and how it goes forward. And I see no staff direction to get that thing going. Trust me, you're not going to be able to get it done in a week. It's going to take quite a bit of time, and I would really appreciate to see that. Notwithstanding a number of measures that seem to be coming down from the state that may make this action and this option kind of get passed by as we all make a choice of whether or not we're going to allow the voice of the people of Costa Mesa to be heard. It seems weird that we would wait to find a way to avoid the people of Costa Mesa talking about what they think should be in Costa Mesa, and it would be a help if you guys would work forward to accomplish that goal. Thank you very much. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see anyone else in the chambers that wishes to speak. So that's terrific. We do have an opportunity for the folks that are on Zoom to speak. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody waiting in the wings on Zoom?
Yes, the first one is Kim Hendricks.
Ms. Hendricks, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And I would like to say thank you for having Zoom offered. It's really nice to be able to fold my laundry and feel productive while I watch the meeting. I just have a few things I would like to bring up, of course, about Fairview Park, because it is the gem of Costa Mesa. One of the things is whether or not the signage to not feed the wildlife had been followed up. I know Chief Glass has retired and we have a new chief. I know that someone on the city council was interested in it, and I sent them the email thread from April, but 3 coyotes were euthanized in March because people had been feeding them, and it would be nice to put that sign up. Another item I'd like to bring up is, once again, reading. I know I'm a teacher and I bug you guys, but you know, the HSS proposal is coming up, and whether or not RC planes should be allowed in Fairview Park is coming before you. And I hope you all received the video of how it was introduced into Fairview Park in the first place. And then I also hope you read the HSS proposal and the Fairview Park Steering Committee's recommendation, as well as the Fairview Park Alliance's response, as well as the Fairview Park Alliance Attorney's letter dated June 17th, 2019, as well as the avian survey from Sea and Sage Audubon. So what good is nature? Well, where do you guys go when you want to relax? Do you drive on the freeway? I don't think so. So I'm just going to read you. I thought, you know, a lot of people don't really understand the gem of Fairview Park and what's in there. We had, this is from the Sea and Sage Avian Survey. We have had a Swainson's hawk as rare bird alert. It has never been seen in Fairview Park before. It migrates usually over the desert. And so this is a state listed threatened species. And I hope you will read this beautiful avian survey. There are so many endangered and threatened species in Fairview Park that not only migrate through it, like the burrowing owl. I mean, it was absent for years. It's there now, as well as resident birds like the California gnatcatcher, the Leaf-Spell's vireo, that sometimes stays, sometimes goes. We have so many beautiful birds in Fairview Park that depend on Fairview Park for their survival, as well as the endangered species. So I'm hoping that you all will read these documents, the avian survey, so I already mentioned it.
Yeah, Kim, you hit the post, so you gotta
Okay,
go.
okay, gotta go.
right.
Second Saturday of the month.
Thanks, bye. Thank you for your comments. Who's next?
Next speaker is Rocky Evans.
Rocky, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You ready?
You hear me okay?
Yeah,
No?
I can hear you fine.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can't hear you. Are you talking, Rocky?
That sounds
Let's
okay?
let's pause Rocky's time. Go back to 3 minutes. Okay, Rocky, say something so we can hear you.
All right. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Super low, but
My name's Rocky.
better now.
Am I cutting out?
Yeah, now it's good. Go with it.
Come back to me. I'll call on.
Are you gonna call back, Rocky?
Probably can't hear me.
Sounds like we can hear him, but he can't.
No, we're not. It's not working, Rocky. Call call back.
Hey, I'm gonna go for it right now.
Okay, go for it.
So, my name's Rocky Evans, and I'm a technical engineer by day and side hustling artist by night. Sorry I couldn't make it in person to sound good and know that you can hear me, but for a fun visual, I'm the guy that changes his beard color, and it's currently red. The weird mullet thing is purple. But I've also been serving on the Cultural Arts Committee since 2015, and we're just checking in during these meetings to let you know what we're up to and to say thanks for your continued support of the arts and its master plan, and hopefully upcoming staff position for the committee. We do have a couple of things coming up. We have a galleries working group that has announced a new installation for the fall, an exhibit at the Costa Mesa Senior Center of the works of Costa Mesa artist Ronald Chi. He recently had a utility box installed, so we're excited to have that going for us. We're also going to be moving forward with a virtual online format for Art Venture this year. That's going to be that's a annual event that we try to have. That's really what I wanted to say. Well, I am on the subcommittee or the working group for the utility box program. I think it's one of our best programs as far as community response, and by and large, the response is overwhelmingly positive. We are trying to continue our same rate of installation and also get some more visibility for our artists through clickable links, and trying to allocate some funds to compensate our artists properly. So for those that don't know about the committee, we are trying to do anything we can to promote art. If you have any kind of project in mind, let us know. We'd like to help out. We also have a grant program where we give money out, and that's my beat. And hopefully it will be. Have a good day.
All right, thanks, Rocky.
Mr. Mayor, no further speakers.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Then we'll close that the public comment part of the meeting, and we'll go to council member committee reports, comments, and suggestions. This is a time for the council members to provide comments and committee reports. We've been off for about a month, so there might be some things that the council members want to update us on. The first one that would normally be up is from District 1, Councilmember Harper, but he's not here tonight, so the first up is from District 5, Councilmember Arliss Reynolds.
Hi, thank you. Given that it's almost 7:30, I'll keep it really short. I just want to give a quick thanks to all of our staff members and residents who, through a little bit of a break in the summer, have continued to move forward. A lot of really wonderful projects that I am looking forward to see come to fruition in the fall. And thanks to all of our residents on different committees who continue to work to advance interesting and helpful projects and help us identify needs in the city. As we head towards our strategic planning retreat, I think at the end of this month, a few things have been on my mind. Of course, safe streets, and especially with our kids going back to school, walking, biking, e-biking, scooting, skating, you name it. Really want to continue pushing to make sure that our streets are safe for children and, again, people of all ages. As we continue to hear reports of people's rent going up and people struggling with meeting their rents, stress about evictions, housing affordability remains on my mind. And as we see the news everywhere of fires and drought, the climate crisis is certainly something that's been weighing on me, and I'm really interested in focusing over the next year on local solutions to address climate issues. So. One quick thanks. I thought I saw that the Fairview Park Alliance won a Nonprofit of the Year award, so congrats to Fairview Park Alliance. Did I get that right? I don't know. Hopefully Kim's nodding and from her room folding clothes. But thank you. That's it for me today.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Reynolds. Next up is from District 4, Councilmember Manuel Chavez. You have a problem with the mic? It's not. Hold on. Go to your. Go to your mouse. use your mouse and push exit. There you go. Okay, now I can do it. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. Not only at the yell. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's our first meeting in a little over a month. So thank you all for joining us. Really nice to see everyone come out from the community to support, not only our new Chief Lawrence, but also, give credit to those and thanks to those to help make our shelter run perfectly and great. So thank you all for being here. Just one quick comment today for me. For those that still want to get their vaccines but don't know where to go, there's going to be an upcoming clinic at Savor Youth. It's going to be September 17th. That's a Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Those that don't know, it's off of Meyer Place, right next to Ray Elementary School. Once again, no questions asked. Just if you want to get a vaccine, don't know where to go, next Friday at Savor Youth, 4 to 8 p.m. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next up is from District 2, Councilmember Lauren Gameros.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things I want to go over briefly. Something my family and I did over the weekend, because it was a long weekend. We were trying to figure out what to do and didn't really want to go very far. We went to the Lions Air Museum. And if you haven't discovered the Lions Air Museum, it's a magical place. And I really wasn't sure how my kids were going to take to it, not to mention my wife, but I found us 3.5 hours later feeling completely exhausted, and we had a wonderful time. You can climb in and out of airplanes. There's a lot of people there that are like walking and living historians, and they know a lot about the city of Costa Mesa. Not to mention, they can give you a great education on our history of not only war, but civilian aircraft. And they have a lot of other things going on there too. So I would just like to recommend that to any families or anyone who wants something to do locally. I know it's Santa Ana, but you enter off of the Costa Mesa entrance on Airway there. So, hey, it's almost Costa Mesa. Another thing I want to talk about along with that is we're having an air show in Huntington Beach. And if you look up August 1st through 3rd, you're going to see a lot of very interesting aircraft flying, including some from the Lions Air Show. So I just want to make everyone aware that we do have a great air show coming up in October. It's a great time. And all you got to do is post up a chair in your backyard and you'll probably get quite the show. The last thing I want to go over, and I'll make this very brief, I really want to acknowledge some of our first responders, our fire, and our police. You know, when 9/11 happened 20 years ago, I was in downtown LA. I was watching it all go down, and it had a very big impact on me. And all I remember is seeing firemen running in burning buildings. I saw police scrambling, and it really had a profound effect on me at the time. So I just want to make everyone aware that just take a moment coming up here on the 11th that we have a group or several groups that are willing to put their lives out there for us. So I just wanted to acknowledge police, fire, and first responders. And I also want to say, in addition to that, we are really taxing our hospitals right now. I had a loved one recently that had to go to the hospital in an ambulance, paramedic, not ambulance, paramedics. And when they got there, they had to wait for a COVID test. Even going in paramedic light sirens, and that's because of what's going on. And we're really taxing our hospital personnel. So keep that in mind when you start making your decisions on whether to or not to get a vaccination, whether to or not to wear a mask, when and where. It's taxing. It really is. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is a council member from District 6, Jeffrey Harlan. You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Costa Mesa. First, I just want to make sure everybody enjoyed the Labor Day. It's hard to believe it's already come and gone. Didn't quite feel like the end of summer, especially since school for many of us had started a few weeks ago, but nevertheless, it's still a wonderful time here in the Mesa. I just had an announcement, a request, and some well wishes tonight. First, I just wanted to make sure the community was aware that next Monday, we're going to be having a joint Planning Commission City Council study session on our housing element. We had a workshop, Zoom workshop on this last week that I think was actually pretty well attended. and I'm pleased to see the kind of input we're getting from our community, so I encourage people to participate next week at that study session. Second, the request, this may already be on our agenda, but Ms. Farrell Harrison, I just wanted to make sure, since we are having, I believe the outdoor dining permits, the temporary ones are going to be up for consideration at the end of this year. I wanted to make sure we actually got on our agenda time for council to discuss that. I know it's been very well received by the community, but I also recognize that there have been some issues associated with neighborhoods, so I want to make sure we just had enough time to go through that and figure out how we might be able to proceed with a more permanent program, but also one that addressed a lot of these neighborhood concerns. And then lastly, well wishes. Today's the beginning of the Jewish New Year, so I just wanted to say Happy Rosh Hashanah to those who celebrate the traditional Jewish blessing or greetings to wish people a sweet New Year. Thank you.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. You ask again, you will receive. Yes, hold on. Go ahead.
All right. So thank you for the apples, Janet. I appreciate that. If tonight's presentations are in any indication, I think our community is doing an excellent job of doing good for our neighbors and our residents. And I really appreciate the partnerships that we have here. And I think we are certainly poised for a very fruitful new year. So Shana Tova, everyone. And that's all I have.
Thank you, council member. And now our Mayor Pro Tem from District 3, Andrea Marr.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. Thanks for everyone who stuck with us through the hours of photos. We have a lot of really tough meetings, really long meetings that go until midnight. We're debating heavy issues. Thank you for bearing with us while we take a little while to celebrate some of our accomplishments. It's really important for us and for the community. So I know it seemed like a little bit of a photo fest, but it's good stuff. On that note, I think two people that we didn't have an opportunity to acknowledge that contributed to the success of the shelter and really where we are today, Tammy Letourneau and Justin Martin. Neither of whom are still at the city, but I think a lot of us keep in touch with them, and they contributed tremendously to getting us where we are today. So wanted to make sure I mentioned them. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for mentioning the Veteran Cemetery in Anaheim Hills. I'm so excited that's moving forward. It's on our agenda, so I'm not going to say too much more about that. But speaking of veterans, on a more somber note, the events of Afghanistan, I think, have been particularly troubling for a lot of people, especially those who served in Afghanistan, or in my case, off the coast. Afghanistan doesn't have a coast, but the closest water possibly. And so I've had a number of folks reach out to me through every possible channel, Instagram, email, whatever, about this just being really kind of tough to reconcile the events of the last couple weeks with the 20 years of history and combat operations. So if anyone needs it, CalVet operates a crisis helpline. It's 1-800-273-8255. It's kind of cool. They also have a chat function. So if you're sitting on your computer all day long, you can chat over there too, or you could text 838-255. So I know asking for help is something that's really tough to do, but I want to make sure that folks know that there are resources out there if they need them to just talk to somebody. Thank you for Michelle Richards on the OC Fair. So I represent the district that immediately touches the fair on four sides, actually. And I think overwhelming success this year. The OC Fair staff was on top of picking up trash. The traffic was not terrible at all, as somebody who's dealt with the fair impacts, not being able to turn into my driveway because of fair traffic in the past. And it was reasonable and manageable, and I think they did a fantastic job. And if they can make it work, it would be pretty awesome if we could cap it at 45,000 people moving forward, just because of the impact that was so dramatically reduced. So we'll see. I heard that they did okay financially, so we'll see if that's a possibility in the future. 1966 Newport Boulevard, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. I've toured the site. I've seen the emails going back and forth. I'm wondering if I can get an update from planning on specifically what our next steps are, so we can help them figure out how to be compliant or get through the variance process. It is a pretty cool site and a dramatic improvement from what was there before. So I'd like to see us support that if possible. It was really hard to hear Rocky Evans, but he was talking about the arts directory and the grant program that the Costa Mesa Cultural Arts Committee are working on. So if you know of an artist in town, we'd love to add them to the directory. We field all kinds of weird requests on city council, right? But one of the things we get often is like, I need a muralist. I need somebody to help me paint this one thing. I want some art for my coffee shop. And so if you know somebody, you can either add them to the arts directory, or you can look at the arts directory for local artists who can support the thing that you need in town. Similarly, the Cultural Arts Committee operates a grant program. I don't remember what the dollar value is up to right now, but if you're gonna have a festival, an event, something with art, the city has little grants we can give out to help you with that event. I was just elected to the local regional board for the League of California Cities to represent big cities. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'll be at the League of Cities conference on September 22nd. It's just a great opportunity to learn about what other cities are doing, best practices, everything from transportation to housing. So kind of excited to nerd out on city stuff for a couple of days. And then last but not least, Councilmember Harlan, I'm glad you brought up the question of the temporary use permits. It's been on my mind as well, and I've been fielding a lot of calls from businesses who are specifically concerned about, I've got this awesome outdoor dining space. What happens in a couple of months? And so I know that planning has a whole heck of a lot on your plate right now. I'd like to see us bring back some ideas. Do we push out the temporary use permit? I'm okay with at least giving businesses some certainty that that's going to be good to go for another 6 months. But eventually we do need to formalize the process of converting those TUPs to CUPs. There's also been some other stuff added, right? In some cases they've added barriers, stages, outdoor music, whatever the thing is. And so finding an expeditious way we can grandfather all of those things in, I think is appropriate so that we're not sending businesses out to go alter their CUP multiple times. So Manu's nodding like you kind of, okay. And that was all I had. Thanks for the extra time. Sorry, I was a little long-winded tonight. Lots of catching up to do.
No, you're great. Okay, so, Mayor Pro Tem mentioned the events in Afghanistan, and of course we're going to consider on our consent calendar a resolution in support of the Veterans Cemetery. So what we're going to do at the end of the meeting is we're going to adjourn for the 13 servicemen and women who were lost recently in Afghanistan in the mission to evacuate Afghanistan. And so I went on Memorial Day or thereabouts to a presentation that was put on by Anduril, who is I've talked about them before. They're a corporation that's going to be coming into the press, and they're currently in Irvine, and they put up a presentation, and it had the photographs and the names and the ranks and the branch of service and some pictures and the age of every veteran who died, every serviceman or woman who died since 9/11. And it was really moving, and it's unbelievable the sacrifices of our military since that day. So as we look at the 20th year, there's a lot to consider, but I don't want that to be lost. That's something that is serious to consider. And so we'll be reading those names, reading their ages. And one thing I just looked at, it's interesting, the age range for those 13, as you'll hear, range from 20 years old to 25 years old, and there's one that's 31. So these are our young men and women of service. So anyway, we'll be doing that at the end of the meeting. Councilmember Chavez and I did something that was quite a celebration on Sunday. We went to a 100-year birthday party right here at St. John the Baptist for Ann Paulo, who lives over in the north part of the city on Turlock, and has a beautiful family, and she invited us to that, and so that was wonderful. Councilmember Gameros and I were last week at the Festival of Children, which is ongoing in the South Coast Plaza area, and we'll be hearing more about that at the next meeting where we talk about the month that's been dedicated by Congress to children. And so thank you to Sandy Sagerstrom Daniels for organizing that. And that also is the 20th year anniversary that we celebrated. And so we're kind of going all over the map here. Councilmember Gameros and Councilmember Chavez and I were the keynote speakers at the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, which was at Time Nightclub. It happened to be the night that we met Greta, who sang the national anthem. So I don't know if there's any connection there, but. And then the final thing is, I can't remember which one of the council members, but recognized our firefighters. You know, our fire and rescue department, and so many of them, I can't name them, but so many of them have gone out on missions to the Dixie Fire and Calder Fire more recently, but they've been doing this for years. And it's very tough work. They're away from their families for long stretches, and then they come back and they're relieved, and then another group goes out, and then they go out again. And so thank you very much to our firefighters and our entire department for your sacrifice. And I don't know when we'll get these under control, but I'm really glad for the work that you do and appreciative. So that is all I have. City manager, let's hear from our city manager, Lori Farrell Harrison, with the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. Good evening, council. Just a couple of brief updates. Again, thank you for the warm welcome for Chief Lawrence. Really happy to have our new police chief on board after an extensive national search. I know that he's going to do very well with our department, and of course with the blessing of this incredible council. And just again, thank you for that warm welcome for him and his lovely wife, Jennifer. We're so lucky to have them. Summer's over. You know, Labor Day is the official ending of summer, but I just wanted to remind us of what an eventful summer we did have. Despite the challenges of the ongoing pandemic, we reopened City Hall. We reopened our council chambers to the public after a 1.5-year closure. We launched a new wait while appointment system, which our residents have really enjoyed. It gives them certainty as to timing of when they can see our city staff across departments. It also gives us good metrics that we can evaluate response times and how long folks are waiting to get to see someone at our counters. And so from a management standpoint, it's a very good tool. We'll be watching that very closely, but just glad that we could be safe, be effective, and much more responsive, and have great data upon which to manage our resources. Of course, the OC Fair returned, and so glad that Michelle was able to give us an update on that. And that was a blast. Many of us went often and had a great time. And we did have our Chargers training camp. And so despite all of the challenges of the pandemic, we've done really well this summer. We opened our new Norma Herzog Community Center, which was fantastic, and the Lions Park Playground. Adult and youth sports programming came back. And then to top it off, of course, we had I think, as you've called it, Mayor Stevens, the Costa Mesa Palooza concert this summer. And so thank you to Jason Minter and his team, and so much more. So just wanted to thank all of the staff for all of your great work this summer. Despite our challenges, we had quite a few events. On the COVID front, as you know, the Delta variant is still in play. The COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations began to spike in late June, and so we've been taking different measures to try to contain things. The good news is that the numbers are starting to stabilize somewhat and come down. Hopefully that will continue. And so we'll just keep watching that. The state has also announced as of last week that 80% of the population in California had at least one shot, and 67% are fully vaccinated. We're certainly going to try our best to increase the numbers for Costa Mesa, and so we'll be engaging, to Councilmember Chavez's point, we will be engaging more heavily in vaccination accessibility efforts as well. Thank you, Stacy. I see that you're still here in the audience. Again, from the bottom of our hearts, we're so thankful for all of your great work. We're going to miss you. Texas is definitely getting the best that Costa Mesa has to offer. And so thank you for all of your dedication, your leadership, your service. And just know that when we've sheltered 200 people, we've sheltered and we've changed the lives of so many more. Just the ripple effects of what it means for one person to be housed. It means one individual, but it's a family a family builds a community builds a nation. And so you're nation building when you do the work that you do. And so thank you so much for that. We're going to miss you terribly, and you're always welcome to come back whenever you want. And as for thank you to council members Harlan and also Mayor Pro Tem Mar on the reminder on the outdoor dining permit. We'll certainly talk about that. We've received feedback both ways, in favor, but also concerned about the impacts to our neighborhood. So we'll be discussing that. We'll come up with a plan. And then just to piggyback on everyone's comments regarding 911, yeah, it's 20 years, never to be forgotten. All of the individuals that lost their lives that day, as someone who's born and raised in New York, the World Trade Center is very near and dear to me personally. Just having spent so much of my time there, I used to work at the New York City Administration for Children's Services, the Child Protective Services Agency of the City of New York, which was on 150 William Street, right down the street. I had clear view of both towers, actually, from my former office. And so my sister was working there at the time. It's something that's very much embedded in the lives of every American, what happened that day. And it's just a reminder that freedom's not free. And so thank you to all of our veterans, including those that work for the City of Costa Mesa, but even those that have retired. Thank you for your tireless service. Thank you, Mayor Stevens, for adjourning the meeting today in the memory of the 13 servicemen and women that unfortunately perished. But thank you to our police and fire teams as well for continuing to serve, always in very difficult conditions. A lot of us get to enjoy the benefits of your work, and so we just wanted to thank you once again for all of your sacrifices and your commitment to public service. And with that, that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Barlow, do you have a city attorney report? Yes. How do I turn your mic on? Let's see. Discussion mode, try that one. You good?
There we go. I also just want to make a brief report. As we are rolling out our cannabis permitting process, I want to remind all of those folks who are operating illegal dispensaries in the city that we're coming for you. We have been working with our task force, police department, code enforcement, fire department, fire marshals department services. All of them working together have successfully shut down numerous illegal dispensaries, seized many thousands of pounds of illegal product and money. Those property owners who are harboring these businesses are not going to be allowed to have dispensaries on their property until at least a year after no more illegal dispensaries are there and after they've paid all of our costs of enforcement. So please go somewhere else and let our legitimate businesses open up as we move forward. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Madam Clerk, has anyone from the public, staff, or council pulled any of our consent calendar items?
No, no, Mr. Mayor, I've received no requests.
I'll forgive you because there's none that have been pulled. Wonderful. Then I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar. Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. I can move to approve the consent calendar.
Second by Councilmember Harlan. Let's vote. Call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, well done. Excellent motion, Councilmember Chavez. Okay, that moves us on to the public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title?
Thank you.
For the first one. Whoops, for the first one, number 1.
Yes. I'm going to do that, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Just jump right in here. It's to conduct a public hearing and establish underground utility district along number 22 along Adams Avenue. You don't need the recommendation, do you?
What's that? No,
No,
I
That's
don't.
it.
It's just the title.
Yeah, presentation by Mr. Seth Raman, Public Services Director, and Mr. Sung, City Engineer.
Mr. Setharaman and Mr. Song, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Sangyang, our city engineer will start the presentation, and then if there are any questions, then we both can answer them.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Madam Mayor Pro Tem and honorable members of the City Council, good evening. My name is Sung Yang, and I'm your city engineer, and I'm pleased to present to the council the first public hearing item on the agenda, which is the formation of the underground utility district along Adams Avenue. A little bit of background. The California Public Utilities Commission, or CPUC, implements the Rule 20 program that enacts or establishes policies and procedures for converting overhead utility or power lines and other equipment to underground facilities. Through Rule 20A, utility companies can assess a fee on ratepayers on which a portion of it's allocated to local agencies in the form of Rule 20A work credits so that local agencies, such as Costa Mesa, can begin the process of implementing and undergrounding utility projects. The last underground utility district that was established by the city was back in 2004, along West 19th Street, which was between Monrovia Avenue and Pomona Avenue, and along Placentia Avenue, which was between 18th Street to 20th Street. Per Rule 28 guidelines, an underground utility district, also abbreviated as UUD, is required to underground existing utility overhead utilities. Currently, the city has approximately $2.54 million in Rule 28 funds. In your staff report, that was rounded to $2.5 million to be city funded, known as to $2.5 million Rule 28 funds that was accumulated since 2004 during the last undergrounding project. Any amount above the $2.5 million is to be city funded, known as Rule 20B funds, and that could be funded through state grants, CIP fund, or gas tax, Measure M, or traffic impact fees. In the past, SE allowed only cities to use for future or mortgage funds in future years to be used for current utility undergrounding projects. However, that provision no longer exists. Once a commitment is made to start a utility undergrounding project, Southern California Edison, or SCE, will lead the design and construction of the undergrounding project. Now, the undergrounding portion is just a part of the greater overall Adams Avenue improvement project, which consists of upgraded bicycle facilities, new landscape medians, parkways, narrow travel lanes, and pavement rehabilitation and accessibility improvements. Public services staff held 2 community outreach meetings, both last year, one on February 26, 2020 at Adams Elementary School, and the second was on September 2nd, 2020 via Zoom. And we received great input from the community during those 2 events. So once the undergrounding of the utilities are complete, this is a typical view of what the street cross-section may look like. What's proposed is a 6-foot landscape median with landscape parkways. That includes a Class 1 bike path or trail. Now what we have here is a rendering of the previous slide. And as you can see, the differences with the utilities undergrounded and the development of the landscape medians and full-width Class 1 bike path and sidewalk. So what we present to the City Council, 2 options in creating the underground utility district. So the first option before you is from, with the limits being from Mesa Verde Drive East to Placentia Avenue at a total cost of $4.74 million, comprised of over $2.54 million in Rule 28 funds and $2.2 million in Rule 20B city funds. The second option is from Mesa Verde Drive East to Albatross Drive at a total cost of $6.24 million, comprised of $2.54 million in Rule 28 funds and $3.7 million in Rule 20B city funds. To show you this visually, we have the first option before you. So what I'll do is just use my laser pointer here. So the beginning is from Mesa Verde East. So this is about 500 feet. So it starts for the Rule 28 portion from Peacemaker's Country Store. So this is roughly about 1,400 feet. And this is the Rule 28 portion. And that's about $2.5 million. The second portion, which is the cyan or light blue, is Rule 20B, which is city funded, and that's about 2.2 million. So altogether, from Peacemakers all the way to Placentia Avenue, we're looking at 4.7 million, and that's option one. The second option is the following. The Rule 20A remains the same. So it's the same beginning, around 500 feet from Mesa Verde Drive East, starting at Peacemakers, and going all the way to Red Wing Circle. Once again, that's about 2.5 million. That's Rule 20A funded. And the Rule 20B funding, which is city funded, once again, is from Red Wing Circle all the way to Albatross Drive. So that portion is around 3.7 million. So we have 2.5 plus 3.7. We're talking about a little over 6.2 million for this option. And as you can see, the limits are longer, which covers more utility undergrounding. So the CPUC is currently reassessing
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes, sir.
Something just occurred to me. Can you just hold on 1 second? So the reason I took a break is just to talk to the city attorney, because as you go down the longer option, it gets to Shantar, and that's fairly close to my house. So she has something. She says I'm okay to participate. Okay. Right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In looking at the conflict rules for interest in real property, when a project has substantially the same effect on you as it does pretty much on a very large population within the city, that is not treated as a conflict under the rules. So in my opinion, the length of this project and the significant number of properties that are potentially affected by it renders you basically in the same position as everyone else. So I don't believe you have a conflict.
All right. I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you for my indulgence. Please proceed. I didn't mean to break your flow.
No, not at all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. So just moving on, the CPUC is currently reassessing or evaluating the Rule 20 program and may consider sunsetting or ending the program in its entirety. For now, currently participating municipalities will be categorized or listed as either active or inactive with respect to Rule 28 balance. In order to be categorized as active status for the program, an agency must meet at least one of two conditions, which is defined as follows. First one being the agency has to be an active Rule 28 project that is in the process of implementation or construction, or number two, the agency has an active resolution which commits to implementing an eligible utility undergrounding project using the agency's available Rule 28 allocation balance. The City of Costa Mesa is currently categorized as inactive, but that can change if the City Council chooses to approve one of the resolutions tonight. So in terms of staff's recommendation is to establish the underground utility district along Adams Avenue. So to reiterate, the options before council are as follows: is to approve a resolution to, number one, from Mesa Verde Drive East to Placentia Avenue at a total cost of a little over 4.7 million, comprised of 2.5 million in Rule 28 funds and 2.2 million in Rule 20B city funds. Or number two is from Mesa Drive East to Albatross Drive at a total cost of 6.2 million, comprised of 2.45 million in Rule 28 funds and the remaining in 3.7 million in Rule 20B city funds. So that concludes my presentation, and staff here can entertain any questions from City Council.
So, Mr. Mayor, just want
sorry,
to add on to that a little bit.
Yes, you have the floor.
The Rule 20B city funds, just want to clarify that it could be any number of funds. It could be actually grant funds that we may get, federal, state. It could be Measure M or fair share money. It could be gas tax or MRA funding, or it could also be our CIP money. So there are different varieties that categorized as city funds. It doesn't have to be only city funded, city sources.
I understand. Thank you. First in the queue is Mayor Pro Tem Mar for questions.
Thank you. That was actually going to be my question. So do we think that this is going to be a multi-year funding cycle in order to supply the gas tax and Measure M, whatever combination of funding?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Moore, yeah, it's a multi-year effort. It's going to take several years for Edison to design and then ultimately get to construction. So the funding can be accumulated over a period of time.
And then that amount of Measure M or gas tax money, like relative to how much we have every year to spend, could you put that in context a little bit?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Moore. For example, we currently have approximately I have to check my numbers, but it's definitely more than $3 million of traffic impact fee money that's in our accounts. We annually get about $2.2 million of Measure M fair share money and also equal amount of gas tax money. And then we also get about $2 million of RMRA, that's the road maintenance and rehabilitation account money from the state. So these are the different funds that can be used.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harlan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is either for Mr. Sethuraman or Mr. Yang. So just two questions. The report says that our annual allocation of Rule 20A credits is a little over $208,000. Is that typical, or does that number fluctuate each year?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harlan, it is more or less typical. That's how much money that gets in every year. I think part of the reason, but Edison is looking at sunsetting the program, which means they may not accumulate any more money towards the program down the road. So that's supposed to happen soon. We don't know when. But that's kind of in the range that we expect.
Okay. And then lastly, are there any other projects that are anticipated to use any of these Rule 20A funds?
At this point, we don't have any other projects in mind, but we have other streets that are currently have overhead power, utility lines that could be undergrounded.
Sure. So given the fact that SE might sunset this, it may be more of a use it or lose it type situation?
Yes, Councilman Harlan. The reason why we are coming to you with Adams is because we have been talking about this project for a while, and it's been something that you have authorized us to proceed with the design a couple of years ago. So we have a design that's underway, that's assuming some of these underground to be part of that project. But however, if the council decides that it should be spent somewhere else, then we need to come up with other options.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens, and thank you, staff, for the brief presentation. I have a quick question. It's not very often that we get a report that's two separate recommendations from staff. So I did the quick math here. There's only about $1.5 million more to do the entire Adam Boulevard. What were some of the things staff was looking at in making this a two-part recommendation with two different alternatives?
So, Mr. Mayor, it's a good question. So, Councilmember Chavez, when we were looking at the project costs and what Edison came back, initially we were of the opinion that in the past when we did these kind of projects, like when we did 19th Street and Placentia, the money that we had in the bank, which was very similar actually. We had about $2.5 million in the bank in the 20A account, and the project ended up costing about $5.7 million. And what Edison did was, we'll use the monies up to 2011, so that they use the future monies to pay for that. So we were hoping that we have a similar arrangement again this year. But Edison came back and said, no, we are going to sunset this program. We won't allow this to happen anymore. You can use only the money that's already accumulated in your account. You cannot mortgage future earnings. So, which means now we are faced with an option of, one is, okay, we can use the 2.54, but it will end up in the middle of the block, which we don't like. We want to go to at least to Placentia. That's a decent project. But what we really think should happen is go all the way to Albatross, because as you observe, it's another $1.5 million that'll get us a good facility all the way up to Albatross. And we like that option, but we are giving you the both options right now for you to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin. And actually, I'm going to dig a bit deeper into your response. And I appreciate the honesty and the concern, both fiscally as for the city. What is there any? How can I word it? Is there any repercussions or any negative impacts if we don't go all the way to Albatross? Like, does it make it harder for the lower birds and that part of Mesa Verde to have services? Is there any drawback?
So Councilor Chavez, the drawback is that the type of improvements that we can do will not be the same as we had shown before in the previous slide, which would be having an off-street bike trail and sidewalk. What would happen is we would transition from that point, from Placentia going west, it would be an on-street bike lane, which would be buffered bike lane. So we would still have a better facility than what we have right now, but it'll be a buffered bike lane.
I see. So essentially, the extra 1.5 million allows us the opportunity to have the entire street be to the code we want it to be, opposed to just up to Placentia.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
So I just have one question. I'm curious about timing. So, if we go with A, B, or whatever, do you have a sense of from where we are now, when can we expect that the project is going to be complete?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
To some order of magnitude. I mean, you don't have to be exact.
Yes. So regardless of what option you choose, the timing that Edison would take for design and construction is almost the same. It's going to be about 3 years for them to complete the design and a year or two for construction to be completed, because they have all these other, it's not just Edison utilities, you also have telephone and cable and all that have to be undergrounded. So to get everything done, it could take another couple of years. And regardless of which option you choose, that's how it would be. The most complicated portion of the project is actually between Mesa Verde East and Mesa Verde West, Placentia. Because in that leg, in that section, the overhead lines actually provide individual power to each property along that side, along the north side. So the work is not only on the street, they also have to make sure that you underground to the property's meter. And it's all done, this cost that we have here assumes all of that. And it becomes less complicated as you go on the other side of Placentia, where actually the lines switch, the overhead lines actually are on the south side of Adams, but they do not have that kind of power service. So that's why it's a little cheaper for that section. And then as you go west of Albatross, you have power lines on both sides of Adams, so it gets more complicated.
So then the roughly 4 years, so 3 years
Yes.
for Edison to design and 1 year to construct.
1 to 2 years.
Does the 1 to 2 years?
Yes.
And that's all in with all of our improvements and the undergrounding.
That's correct. And, excuse me, so that is actually for Edison to complete their work, and we would follow right behind them to finish the bike trail portion. So that could be another year of our work.
Okay, so we're talking about 5, it's like
6 years.
7 years? 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a good chance of seeing that. All right, great. I don't have any further. Oh, Councilmember Reynolds.
Hi, just one question, and apologies if you're repeating yourself on these. Can you remind me the extent of the design project for the ATP improvements for Adams Avenue?
Councilmember Reynolds, our design project goes from Royal Palm all the way to the city limits, which is Santa Ana River.
So Royal Palm, sorry, I'm looking on my map here again. Royal Palm west to the city limits.
To the city limits.
So that encompasses the entirety of either recommendation in your staff report. Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
All right, let's open the public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak about this, you have 3 minutes. And we'll do the same thing where we go inside the chambers and then if anybody's on Zoom. Mr. Humphrey, you have the floor. Oh, did I turn that off? It must, it went off again, hold on.
Thank you, Council. Good evening again. Jay Humphrey, Costa Mesa resident. This has been an issue for 40 years since I've been in the city. It's also been a miserable bike lane to go across. In fact, if any of you want to take a real fun experience, ride that bike lane at rush hour, and you will have a really fun day. So it's about time. And I am pleased that I will support absolutely both options, either one, because it doesn't make any sense to me if you're going to dig up the ground one spot to not dig up the ground the other spot. And it is long in coming. My only question is to make sure that all utilities, including phone and cable and what have you, are all included in that undergrounding. As long as that's the case, then you do wind up by having the option for the bicycle lanes, the walkways, and long time coming. So please think about the community. That needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else in the chamber that wishes to speak. Anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
Yes, first is Costa Mesa Opportunity Zone.
Costa Mesa Opportunity Zone, you have the floor.
Thank you for taking my comments. I just want to remind City Council that you have an opportunity zone and that your CEDS plan, CEDS plan that was submitted for the 2019-2023 plan years included a project called the Adams Avenue Multipurpose Trail, which included monies, grant monies from the Economic Development Administration. For what? For bike trails, a multi-purpose trail project will design and construct bicycle and pedestrian improvements, including off-road multi-purpose trail on Adams Avenue from Santa Ana River to the Fairview Road. Why? Because it was supposed to help students get to Orange Coast College and help people get to jobs. Your opportunity zone, which came after the CEDS plan submission, the EDA invited you to update your CEDS plan because you were awarded an opportunity zone in the 2017 tax law. And Costa Mesa and the County of Orange have not updated the CEDS plan. And if you're looking for an additional revenue stream to make this happen, don't leave your opportunity zone behind. Broadband, underground, and utilities. All you have to do is tie this to your opportunity zone, which in the CEDS plan is called the red zone. Your red zone is your opportunity zone. If you tie this to your most economically disadvantaged in the city, which is your opportunity zone, if you will tie this project into your CEDS plan, you can open yourself up to EDA dollars, grant dollars to help subsidize this project. While you're helping those on the Mesa Verde area, you're also tying it into the folks that you intended to serve in the CEDS plan. And you're also opening up the city to other opportunity zone funds. All right, thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Cynthia McDonald, please.
Ms. McDonald, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm glad that Council Member Reynolds brought up the fact that there is a bikeway planned for the strip of Adams. And the fact that, like Mr. Humphrey said, it's a very perilous ride. And so as a gateway to our city, it would be great to not only improve its appearance, but also improve the safety by making way for a larger bikeway along this stretch of Adams. In terms of the funds, I know the funds that have been piling up for a number of years. That's how you get these projects done through Edison. But we also have another gateway in Costa Mesa, and that is Fairview Road. And Fairview Road has been impacted for a number of years by not only the poles, but lots of utility boxes and impediments to people biking and walking through our city. And yes, it's a gateway to the fairgrounds. It's a gateway to the Chargers field. It's the way you get to OCC. And so after we get this project done, I hope that you take a look at Fairview Road if there are any future funds from Edison or ways that we could also do undergrounding there. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, no further speakers.
Okay, I'll close public comment and entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Mar, do you wish to make a motion?
I do, Mayor Stevens. I move to establish underground utility district number 22, Albatross to Mesa Verde Drive East, option B in the staff report.
So motion by Mayor Pro Tem Mar, seconded by Councilmember Chavez. And so Mayor Pro Tem Mar, you wish to speak to the motion? No? Okay. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes, I'll be very brief. It's important for us to really focus on capitalizing on the opportunities we have to make Clemson a more bikeable, walkable city. This is one of those opportunities. So thank you to staff for the options, but I think we chose the best one, which is make sure we get the most bang for our buck. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Harlan wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if the maker of the motion would be open to a friendly amendment. Before you say yes, I'll just tell you what it is. So I agree with the comment that was made about the opportunity zones being a potential tie-in for funding. I wouldn't want us to preclude that opportunity, no pun intended. So my friendly amendment would be to direct staff to look at whether or not we can in fact tie this project to an opportunity zone and examine the potential for funding.
Oh,
I will accept the friendly amendment. Thank you.
second concur? Yep. Okay, friendly amendment accepted and second concurs. Do you have anything else, Councilmember Harlan? No. Okay, Councilmember Reynolds.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to support the motion, and I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge a couple aspects of the design that I think are wonderful and important to be thinking about as we continue to advance safety for all road users in our city. I don't know, Mr. Yang, if you can just pull up that cross-section again so we can look at that beauty for a couple seconds. And this conversation came up in a recent town hall on Adams Avenue further east, right? Okay, yeah. So also on Adams. And there was a lot of discussion among residents and students who called in, walkers and bikers, and drivers, about the importance of vehicle speeds and safety, the connection between vehicle speeds and safety, and the impact of vehicle speeds on actual safety and feelings of safety and sort of the comfort of roadways. And on Adams Avenue, I think our speed limit is 45, which means cars are usually driving 55. And so there was a bit of a discussion that anytime we have people outside of vehicles moving next to vehicles moving at those speeds, let's try to put a barrier in place. And that's what I love about this design, is that there's a barrier in place. Stripes are not enough, buffered lanes are not enough. Physical barriers, especially 5-foot ones, or what we need when we've got cars moving that fast. So thank you for this design, and thank you for the long-term vision to improve Adams Avenue with this project and other projects in process. So thank you.
Thank you. So I support the motion. I've lived in this area, as I said, when I disclosed the conflict for 21 years. And I'm sure that Jay Humphrey is right. This has been an issue for 40 years. I don't doubt that. And it is a dangerous street. It's a gross, dirty street in the sense that we don't have sidewalks through part of it, which is like one of the only places in the city, certainly the only corridor that can say that. Thank you to our Public Works Department, Raja, Mr. Sethuraman, and Mr. Yang for taking this on and moving it forward. It seems like 7 years is a long time, but relative to the amount of time this has been an issue, it's not much. So thank you. I'm glad we're here, and I'm glad we're moving forward. And thank you to the council, especially like Councilmember Reynolds, Councilmember Marr, Councilmember Chavez, everybody really who supports active transportation and making our streets and our corridors safe. It's very, very good to have this council that believes in that. And it's going to save lives. People have died on that street. It's dangerous. People have died. And this is going to save lives and make our community more beautiful. So thank you. I support this motion. Let's call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, great. So let's, shall we do the next public, does anybody need a break? You want to take a break? Let's take a break, then we'll go on with our public hearing too, and then we'll get through the rest of the agenda. Hello, everybody. We're back, and we're ready for public hearing item number 2. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title?
Thank you. This is first reading to an ordinance amending Title 13 of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code to clean up internal inconsistencies between various chapters of the zoning code and to conform to recent revisions to and requirements of state law. Code Amendment 2020-02, presentation by Ms. Ashabi, Principal Planner. Thank you.
Mrs. Shabi, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This code amendment before you this evening includes corrections to correct internal inconsistencies between chapters, references to outdated terms or information, imprecise language which has been interpreted and applied but not clarified in the code, and several state regulations that needed to be reflected in the zoning code. The chapters affected by this amendment are chapters 1 through chapter 9. The chapter 1 being the definitions chapter, it needs clarification related to what's a property line location, natural grade and finished grade, what defines a bedroom, specialty stores, boarding houses that needed to be consistent with the home ordinance adopted in 2015. And tandem parking that needs to be consistent with small lot ordinance. Chapter 3, relative to planning applications, the streamlined process for single-family development, allowing a small reduction in garage size through a minor modification, such as in cases of having a washer and dryer, deleting references to redevelopment agency, and cross-reference to special use permit per group home ordinance adopted in 2015. Chapter 4, amendments to the land use matrix include adding permanent makeup to distinguish that use from tattoo parlors, group counseling that would be subject to a minor conditional use permit, and clarifying that the emergency shelters operated by the city that's within the PDI zone do not require a master plan per state law. Chapter 5, relative to residential development standard, was modified to allow for flush-mounted solar panels. This is preempted by the state law. And then also cleanup related to consistency standards for small lot ordinance projects. Relative to commercial and industrial development standard, we included screening of existing roof-mounted equipment standards, auto service uses, adding a cross-reference to existing provisions, and also allowing shade structures for approved dining uses in setback areas subject to approval of a minor conditional use permit. Chapter 6 that includes the parking, common interest development changes would basically clarify parking requirements for units with 2-bedroom versus 3-bedroom units or more. Guest parking for multiple family development configured similar to a single family. An example would be a townhome, a duplex that would allow flexibility for guest parking to be located on the driveways. Relative to sign standards, the construction signs in R1 zone may be no larger than real estate signs, and clarification related to flags consistent with the state and federal laws. Landscape requirements, clarifying landscaping that's required in R1 zone, that's limited to the setback area that's visible from the public right-of-way. This code amendment was reviewed with the Planning Commission back in July of last year, and it was approved or recommended for approval with a 7-0 vote with a minor modification relative to inclusion of artificial turf. The staff is recommending that the City Council find the code amendment exempt from CEQA guidelines section 15061 and give first reading to an ordinance approving this code amendment related to Title 13. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of the council members have any questions for Ms. Ashabi? Okay. Councilmember Harlan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Shabi. First of all, I appreciate our interest in staff's work in trying to streamline our processes. I think that's definitely going to be of benefit to our community and our residents. So I do have a couple questions, more for clarification than anything else. So let's start with the bedroom room definition, which is on, I guess, page 406, sorry. It says a fully enclosed room designed or intended to be used for sleeping purposes within a residence that typically includes a closet and is separated from other living spaces. So are we requiring a closet, or is that just a general recommendation?
We are requiring a closet for it to be counted as a bedroom. We've had instances where a house may have multiple offices that they don't include a closet, which makes them exempt from having a 3-car garage. So this is to ensure that all the rooms that have a bedroom potential with the closet are counted towards the parking.
Right. So if it says that typically includes, that gives, to me, says there's some wiggle room there. So I just want to make sure that the intent is clear, that if you're making a room with that may or may not have a closet, that could be counted towards parking.
But it's, we can modify the typical reference to include a closet. Is that?
Well, that would be my recommendation, but I just want to understand, though, if it is a room without a closet, it's just identified as an office, would that still be counted towards the bedroom as parking?
Yeah, it would not. It would not be counted.
Okay. All right. Second question has to do with just single-story residential construction. So this is more just for the public's knowledge. We're basically eliminating that from development review if it's single-story construction in an R1 zone.
That is correct.
Okay, because I know people always complain when some construction starts occurring in their backyard and they feel like there was no notice, but often there are plenty of things that don't require any kind of notice, and there's no discretionary review, but here we're just kind of streamlining the process.
Correct.
Okay. And then the last question I really have has to do with the parking size and configuration deviation, or what we're allowing for a minor modification. So staff's recommendation is for a 5% deviation. So in a standard 20 by 20, that's basically a foot in either dimension. You know, I went through this when we did a home renovation project, and our existing garage was, I think, 18 width by 22 or 23 feet in depth. So it's non-conforming. Under this provision, though, we still wouldn't be able to get any kind of relief because we're still short about a foot. What I wanted to know is if we've done any kind of review of what a typical non-conforming garage dimension looks like. I mean, is it 19 or is it 18 or 17?
I don't have that information. Typically, the older units built in the 50s could be down to 18 feet. That is correct. The main reason for this deviation is that some of the lots that have that are narrow, and especially like in some of the west side areas, we understood that the 20-foot dimension was a challenge, so we ended up with a lot of deviation from that standard. It didn't quite go down to 18 feet. It was a matter of inches, and in some cases, maximum a foot. And that was the reasoning for this language, to allow for that deviation. We didn't extend it to non-conforming garages. The reason we allow for the encroachment of the maybe washer and dryer is to allow, again, a non-conforming garage to proceed with some kind of an addition without having to move their laundry facilities inside the house in those cases.
All right, that makes more sense. And then I guess I had one more, sorry. had to do with the shade structures. So is this in response more to what we've gotten as far as feedback from applicants who are proposing outdoor dining, even with or without encroachments into the public right of way?
That is correct.
So from a design standpoint, it's preferable to have this provision in here.
And the provision really requires, allows shading, but does not require encroachment through some vertical support.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, let's open, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Mar.
Sorry, just looking at the landscaping standards for artificial turf, I know this came up on one of those properties on the east side that looks like a single-family home but is now a business. I'm trying to remember the cross street. What's that? Yeah, Broadway. Thank you. Where I think that the new owner of the building wanted to install more landscaping that was artificial turf than our code allowed. Does Section 813-106E resolve that? It's still only 50% of the yard area.
I'm not familiar with that project on Broadway, but this allows that 50%.
Regardless of the zone?
Correct. Well, yes, that is true. It's regardless of the zone.
Okay. And why 50% is kind of an arbitrary?
It is to allow for like a combination of turf and shrubs, so it doesn't look very artificial, for a mix of the two. And, you know, that was the intent, to allow some turf, but not to allow it entirely.
Why not?
I think there's been a desire to have some natural shrubs in the landscape areas, just because of the artificial looks of some of the turf. And we allowed some changes with maybe submittal of some samples, because some artificial turfs tend to look better than others. So I think that was the reason, because maybe initially there were some artificial turf that didn't look very real, looked more artificial.
Yeah, I mean, I think 10 years ago, even artificial turf looked worse than it does now, but there's a lot of it looks pretty good. And then the other thing is that 50% includes the space that's between the roadway and a sidewalk in most cases, right?
For the front, it's anything within the front landscaping.
Got it. Because I know that's come up a couple of times too, where folks are trying to put in artificial turf in that public right-of-way area.
And the parkway area, so that's through the public services.
Okay. Were you going to say something, Mr. Seth-Rahman? No. Okay. All right, thank you.
So Councilmember Harlan.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had one follow-up question. So, Ms. Ashabi, if a home has 3 or more bedrooms and or offices, what is the parking requirement going to be? Because table 1385, as I read it, says 1 tenant-covered parking and then 2.5 for tenant open parking. And then 1/2 for guest parking.
Are you referring to table 13-85?
Yes, that's correct.
So that table is applicable to condominium development, not single family. Single family is referred to in 13-85A.
Okay.
And for any new construction that has has 5 bedrooms or more, 3 garage spaces and 2 open parking spaces would be required. Anything less than 5 would be subject to 2 car garage and 2 open parking.
Less than 5. Okay. I'm just trying to get a handle on, you know, when you look on a plan, whether it says bedroom or office, there's a way to, you know, manipulate it so that you're trying to meet your parking. So if the intent for the office to be counted as a bedroom is simply that it can be typically converted, we want to make sure that's part of our parking count, correct?
That is correct, but if I could clarify, this applies to new construction. If a home is going through some remodel and they're not adding any bedrooms and they have a 2-bedroom and, a 2-car garage and 2 open parking spaces, that would be in compliance.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying. That's all.
Councilmember Reynolds.
I have a question on page 2 of the staff report, or 405, page 405. The staff report mentions, it shows 5 bullets of some additional code amendments that the Planning Commission sort of recommended staff look into. And I was curious if there is any movement planned on any of these. If so, which ones are staff continuing some work in?
So we are continuously keeping track of the changes that needs to be made to the code, and forgive me, but this has taken like more than a year to become before you this evening. So we will keep track of those changes and the items as you noted. So we plan on doing this at least once a year. So that would be hopefully presented to you within next year.
So these 5 bullets of additional recommendations from Planning Commission, you're anticipating, if I'm understanding you correctly, are you anticipating that staff will sort of complete all of these recommended reviews for the next code update in a year?
As they're relative to the zoning code cleanup, yes. But if there are more comprehensive reviews of some land use matrix or
so a comprehensive evaluation of parking requirements that considers the cost of providing parking and increases credit for bike racks.
Bike racks. So there are different. Our zoning code cleanup update has a different track versus some of the other items that need to be identified in the zoning code that would require more studies. And so these were recommendations by the Planning Commission, not necessarily for the next update or cleanup, but as a general guidance for looking at the zoning code more comprehensively.
Okay.
Hi, this is Jennifer Lee. I'm joining you via Zoom this evening. So,
Hi, Miss Lee.
hello. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to add to that response. Clearly, there are some additional changes that the Planning Commission would like city staff to prioritize. Some of those are in the zoning code. Some of them are in other sections of the code that are different. The annual cleanup that staff is presenting to you this evening and intends to move forward with are really intended to be streamlining processes, cleaning up inconsistencies, certain items on the bulleted list, and in particular, the update of the parking requirements is something that's really more substantial and will probably require a standalone effort on its own, including some consultant assistance as well. Parking requirements in particular have not been updated in a very long time. It's something we've discussed with the council. So we anticipate we would need some consultant assistance there to really study Costa Mesa's parking patterns and propose something that we think is location appropriate. So something like that would be more of an effort than could be done in an annual cleanup, but it's something that we're aware of based on Planning Commission's recommendations, and we'll be looking to council to prioritize those efforts along with some of our others, perhaps through our retreat this year or in coming years, but as well as just through council direction. So that's our intention.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. That's really helpful. I was trying to get a sense of what sort of already is sort of on the docket to be working on versus what you wanted our input on through, I think the planning retreat makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, by the way, so yeah, public comment. Do you guys see this on the presentation? Go to your presentation. This is broken? They just had, I don't know what that was, but it just had the former council up there. It was weird. So anyhow, if we don't have any further questions by the council, and I don't see that we do, let's open this up to public comment. So public, like anything else, you've got 3 minutes to speak on this item, and we'll take people from the chamber. I don't see a lot of people rushing the podiums in the chamber. So, Ms. Green, do we have anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak to this item?
Yes, the first one is Opportunity Zone.
Yes, ma'am. You have the floor.
Thank you for hearing my comments. I'm speaking about the boatyard rather than the Opportunity Zone. My name is Susan Iwamoto, and I'm the wife of a boat builder at 141 East 16th Street in Costa Mesa. The boatyard is the oldest boatyard in Costa Mesa. If you've ever read the Newport Beach Historical Society book, they did an entire chapter on the original boatyards, and we're in there. And I have to tell you that please, please, please take a look at section under the PC 2020-17, the Planning Commission resolution on 7/13/20, changes to Title 13, Chapter 5, under Commercial and Industrial Development Standards, where they state that they are making changes to conform to legislative intent and state requirements. I have to tell you how painful this is for the industry. The boatyards, not just ours, but any maritime industry is defeated by this language. All operations shall be conducted within an enclosed building. All operations located within 200 feet, I think, of residentially zoned zoned areas will be 7 to 7 p.m. That one we can work with. But enclosed buildings, we went through litigation with the city in 2019. We were cited for being a boatyard. We were cited for legal non-conforming uses. We spent $100,000 fighting the city. I would never wish this on anyone. We thought the day that we left Costa Mesa would be a red carpet thank you, but no, it was a boot in the ass that said, you cannot build boats outside of your structures. We have built over 100 vessels, 80 to 100 feet long. Before we were the city of Costa Mesa, we were the village of Harbor. Before we were the city of arts or the action sports capital of the world, we were the world mecca for boat building. The Newport Beach Historical Society mentions 2 boatyards that were in Costa Mesa, the Ditmar Donaldson Yard and us. Please, I'm asking you, we're still here. We helped our historical society do an entire permanent exhibit to the west side Costa Mesa maritime industry. Please do not allow this language to go forward that says that operations will not be conducted except inside of closed buildings, that damaged or inoperable boats or vehicles stored for purposes other than repair cannot exist. Guess what? It's a year wait sometimes for parts. We have storage. Sometimes that's what we do to survive while we're waiting for parts to come in. Does the city really want to spend your tax dollars getting to the bottom of that?
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody else on Zoom that wishes to speak?
Yes, call in user 1, please.
Call in user 1, you have the floor. I don't know.
Hi, is this me? I also would like to register concern about the marine industries in Costa Mesa getting squeezed. I'm concerned about the 18-foot driveway length, because anybody who's ever wheeled anybody in a wheelchair or walked with anybody in a walker knows how difficult it is when you have vehicles hanging over the end of the driveway. But I also, I'm primarily calling about the section on plan development, 13-60, regarding the open space. 13-60A says required open space shall be land areas that are not occupied by buildings, structures, parking, driveways, streets, or alleys. And it goes on pretty much along those lines. And then at least 50% of the required open space shall be designed for common use. And then talks about provisions regarding that. The remaining open space shall be equally provided to each unit. That's what we have now. And then what we have now is all or part of the area required to be provided in the common open space for multiple story units or common interest developments where dwelling units have no ground floor access, or where for other reasons the Planning Commission finds its provision of all or part of the required private open space in the aforementioned manner is impractical or undesirable. Then basically what we're saying here is, instead of having private open space, you could put it back in the common open space if it's not practical. And then it also goes on to talk about the balconies and the patios to count for private open space. 1360E is very clear that it applies to private open space and how we count it, and is it aggregated with the common open space or is it a balcony? The proposal tonight would allow the common open space to be, except for the perimeter open space, to be on upper levels, on decks, so forth. This is a substantive change. This is not just a cleanup change. This is taking common open space, which now must be in an area with no building, and putting it on a roof, putting it on a balcony, and so forth. Previously, Section E applied only to private open space. So this is a substantive change. It may be a change you want to make. I don't think it's appropriate, but if it is a change you want to make, be open about it and don't bill it as just a cleanup, because it's more than that. Thank you. And I'm hoping it's just a typo, because the context of E actually then goes back to reference private open spaces and private balconies. So I'm hoping that where it says all or parts of the required common open space may be provided, blah, 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 that it was really supposed to be all or parts of the required private open space. And if it's just a typo, then I'm happy. Thank you. Bye.
Wendy Lease, please.
Ms. Lees, you have the floor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I can't figure out how to read this section of the changes, but I do want to support Susan and encourage you to, since it is regarding the boatyard, since it is a first reading, to go down there. If you've never been down there, there is the feeling of Costa Mesa's history on that land, and the just the history of boat making and just providing jobs and the craftsmanship. There's several boats that I saw a while back, and I think that to ask that minor change, to ask them to build inside, is just being unreasonable, particularly when we're hopefully coming out of the pandemic. And there's many people, businesses we know, that are struggling from hardships. And I think this would be an unnecessary hardship that you would put on them. So I would ask that you would remove that line. And in the meantime, before the second reading, go down there and have a walk around the property and just see for yourself. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Mayor, there's no further speakers.
Okay, then I'll close public comment. And before I solicit a motion, I have a question. So Ms. Iwamoto and Ms. Lees were talking about that provision pertaining to the marine industry. Where is that exactly? Can somebody direct me to the page number? 490. 490 says, Councilmember Harlan, a reliable source for a jump site. Okay. Okay. I have it now. Mrs. Shabi, so why should we include this? Why is this just clean up? And I want to give you or anyone else from staff an opportunity to respond to the comments made by the public on this one.
So Mr. Mayor, the added language is what's already provided in the code is a cross-reference. So any boat or a vehicle repairs within 200 feet of a residential zone is subject to a conditional use permit. These are standard languages in the code, and it is in another section 13-54, I believe. So it's a cross-reference. And it would be applicable to a new use. So if you have a new repair use, if you have an existing non-conforming use, this would not apply.
Okay. But if I read the item that she was the most concerned about, I think, is E subsection 1. Where it reads, service and repair of motor vehicles and boats. The service and repair operations shall be subject to the following. One is, all operations shall be conducted within an enclosed building. You see where I'm indicating?
Yes.
Okay, and then the reference that you, I think, unless I misunderstood you, you were saying located within 200 feet of a residentially zoned. That looks like subsection 3. There's no, I don't see any modification for, and maybe it doesn't make any difference, because I think aren't most of these boat places within 200 feet of residences?
Some of the existing ones could be, yes.
Okay, but you're saying that this would not apply to the existing ones?
It wouldn't apply to an existing use. It would be applicable to a new use.
And why should we apply it to a new use?
Well, because of the proximity to residential, section 13-54 has all the subsection noted.
And
So
what's the jump site to that one?
So it's not part of this because there was no changes proposed in that section. So if the council desires to make these changes, it would have to be done to section 1354 as well.
Okay. Okay. And then what about,
I just want to point out that that was not considered by the Planning Commission. So if you're going to change that section, it would really need to go back to the Planning Commission.
so you're saying that is existing? That the item that Ms. Iwamoto complained about is in our existing code?
Yes.
But
I believe it's in section 13-54. I haven't had a chance to look it up, but if you give me a second, I can look that up.
And
yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the code right now online. It is in section 13-54B. It does prohibit or require that these operations be conducted inside. And again, I think in adding them to this section, rather than using the cross-reference, they're simply substituting the actual language. So this does not reflect a change in the law at all. It's simply a clarification, if you will.
it's a repeat of the language.
Correct.
Is there, so isn't that that's superfluous just to?
Well, they're striking out the cross-reference. They're putting it actually in this so that people can see what the requirements are. And it does only apply to new developments, not existing.
When did 1354B go into effect?
Originally? Well, it hasn't been amended since 2006, but I don't know what the changes were. The very first version of this looks to have been approved sometime in 1997.
Okay, so that sounds to me like what you're saying is that all operations conducted within an enclosed building for this service and repair of motor vehicles and boats, that has existed in our code in 1354B since 1997?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it wouldn't apply just to new prospectively, meaning from now going forward. It applies to everything from 1997 going forward.
Whatever the version was that was in place in 1997 obviously applied to anything developed after that.
Okay, so that's,
This will,
lot of
this
years ago.
language not being any different from what was apparently last adopted in 2006, but simply moving the language from one place to another would effectively continue in place the language that has been in existence since at least 2006 for any new things built under that code.
okay.
So I think the boatyard that is being referred to has been in existence since before this provision ever was created.
Yeah, of course.
Release me.
I'll release you. Please release me. All right.
So I question that, Ms. Barlow, only because and I'm trying to juggle the zoning code and the ordinance here, but the zoning code 1354 specifically applies to industrial districts. And what's being proposed here, I believe, was commercial districts. So are we simply bootstrapping the additional development standards for industrial to commercial districts as it relates to boat operations?
Not exactly, because the current language in the commercial districts already cross-referenced this provision.
Okay.
So it applied to both developments in both industrial and commercial previously. It simply now allows someone to look right at 13-45 and see the requirement as opposed to having to cross-reference.
Okay. So in some sense, we're kind of arguing about form at this point?
Indeed.
Okay. So I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I prefer efficiency, and I don't know why we'd need to include something that we could do by reference. But at the same time, I understand there might be some desire to actually just be able to see something right in front of you rather than make that leap through the zoning code.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, we're talking about just literally cleaning up something that was in one part of the code and moving it to another part.
We're not actually moving it, we're just inserting it in both places where it applies.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks. And then what about the comment that was brought up by former Mayor Guinness on 494 is where I see the red line. And there's a reference to, I think her point was that if we're going to include roof decks and balconies as open space, it's substantive. We shouldn't do it as a cleanup. What do you say about that?
In this,
If I may,
with the addition.
This is Beverly. I can start, and then if anyone would like to add on, please do. Essentially, the reason that this modification was suggested was as a result of council direction specifically related to the Ford Road project, where there were balconies and decks in particular, and the council made a decision on that project that those in fact did count. So what we intended to do here as a cleanup was to reflect that stated legislative intent in code a little more clearly than it had been before. The way that it's worded in the existing code, it's subject to interpretation, which is why as council reviewed that project, they rendered an opinion on that particular point. So Minu, if you'd like to add on, please do, but that was the reason behind viewing this as really a cleanup that was indicative of prior direction from the council.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the Ford Road project type of the units, they had garages on the ground level and living spaces on the second and third level. So it made sense for any open space to be on the upper levels. And that's why the interpretation was made.
Okay. So it's like codifying case law. So, all right. But then I can just have a dim memory of the Ford Road case. Did we say that we wanted to do that in all cases? Would this this wouldn't apply obviously just to Ford Road. We're broadening it to everything in the sense that we're saying basically Ford Road is a precedent of sorts.
That is correct.
Okay. Huh, okay. But it does seem that still doesn't seem like a cleanup to me. It seems like as the former mayor said, some more substantive than a cleanup is to take a decision that was made on a project and codify it. Would you agree?
Well, the intent with the change, Mayor, was to reflect prior direction from the council, but certainly if that's something that goes a little further than the council's comfortable with going, considering the remainder of the cleanups, then we're happy to remove it and essentially put it in, include it as something that's noticed as a more substantial amendment. But from staff's perspective, we viewed it as a cleanup that reflected prior council direction. Happy to take direction from council though. Okay.
Well, let's see how the council directs you. Councilmember Harlan wants to make a motion. No, you're not so sure. Okay. Does anybody wish to make a motion? We're not getting past this item unless somebody makes a motion. Yeah, can we remove?
Yeah, you can remove, I mean.
Mayor Pro Tem Mar wants to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move to continue the item to the next opportunity. I'd like to spend a little bit more time understanding the open space and talking with Ms. Iwamoto about whether or not that section impacts her. In fact, I also don't really understand isn't it cleaner to incorporate the section by reference? That way, if we change 1354, automatically 45 gets changed. If the intent, we're piggybacking off the industrial language for the commercial intent. So it seems like we're making it less efficient. So I don't know. I feel like there's things I'm not understanding. I appreciate public comment tonight because it brought to light a couple of things and I'd like another chance to think about it.
Do you wish to second that, Councilmember Harlan?
I do, and I concur with Mayor Pro Tem's reasoning.
Okay. Okay, for my part, I agree, and I'll be supporting the motion. Does anybody else wish to be heard on the motion?
May I inquire, this is a public hearing item, so if we're going to continue it without renoticing it, we would need to continue it to a date certain.
Okay, so let's continue it to a date certain. What would you say, sometime in October, November? What would be a good thing? I guess that's a question more for the city manager.
This item isn't time sensitive, and so I think the more flexibility, probably the better for us to drill down on some of these issues.
So it has to be a date certain, so.
Let's see.
Go ahead, whatever date you want. We can just put it in the motion.
Jennifer, do you want the second date in October or first in November?
And then October would be appropriate. City manager.
It would be no problem to renotice this item.
Okay. So we don't need to absolutely have a date certain.
We can
Okay.
What's that?
be more flexible on that so we could just renotice it
If Ms. Lee is perfectly agreeable to October 19th, and for some reason that doesn't work, we would let you know, and then we could renotice it and set it for another meeting. How's that?
I'd rather have more flexibility, Kim, if that's okay, just to be able to manage.
I'll defer to the city manager on this, obviously.
Thanks. If that's okay with the council, then we'll bring it back as soon as we can drill down on these issues and get you some responses.
Okay, so that's fine. And Madam Clerk, you understand the motion? Okay, that's good. Let's call for the question.
motion carries 6-0.
All right. New business item number 1.
This is the adoption of resolution number 20-21 to amend compensation for the position of police chief and related amendments to the executive compensation plan and executive salary schedule to ensure executive parity and continuity of essential services. Presentation by Ms. Farrell Harrison, City Manager.
Ms. Farrell Harrison, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just have a brief verbal presentation, but the resolution that's before you this evening, we're bringing it forward to just codify and solidify the new police chief's compensation package, and then other changes to align compensation for the other executive management as well. And so if you have any questions, please let me know.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't see anybody lining up in the queue. So I'll open it up to public comment. Does anybody want to comment from the chambers? I don't see anyone. Anyone on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, none.
Okay, I'll close public comment and entertain a motion. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Mar and seconded. So is your motion to approve?
It is.
Okay.
Move to approve the staff recommendation.
Motion to approve here. Yeah, and then second is the same?
Yes, never underestimate our ability to have teamwork with Mayor Pro Tem Mar.
All right. Okay, terrific. Okay, so then let's call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
Way to go. Okay, so thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Now we're moving on to new business item 2.
Thank you. This is a request to approve the transfer of St. John's Manor Affordable Housing Development to Vanith St. John's Manor by approving the assignment, release, subordination, assumption, and amendment of the regulatory agreement relating to St. John's Manor, and to release a memorandum of amended and restated affordable housing and home investment partnership agreement. Presentation by Ms. Lee, Economic and Development Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have a brief verbal presentation for you this evening. The item before you is a request to approve the transfer of St. John's Manor to Avanath St. John's Manor LP by approving the assignment, assumption, and amendment of the regulatory agreement and the release of memorandum related to the Affordable Housing and Home Investment Partnership Agreement. St. John's Manor is located at 2031 Orange Avenue and is a 36-unit senior affordable housing development originally constructed in the mid-1980s. In 2006, it was purchased by St. John's Manor and rehabilitated using redevelopment agency funds, including a loan of home funds and also low to moderate income housing funds. The agency entered into 2 agreements with St. John's Manor, a housing agreement related to the loan, and also a regulatory agreement related to providing units at affordable rents to seniors for a 55-year period. The regulatory agreement requires 8 units to be occupied by very low income seniors and 28 units to be occupied by low income seniors age 62 or older. The rehabilitation work was completed in 2007 and the redevelopment agency loan was fully repaid in 2018. The Housing Authority, which is the successor to the Costa Mesa Redevelopment Agency, continues to inspect the facility for affordable rents and property condition. St. John's Manor is now in escrow to be sold to Avanath, which is an investment firm that acquires, owns, renovates, and operates affordable apartment communities. The original regulatory agreement requires that any transfer of ownership be approved by the Housing Authority, which is why this item is before you this evening. Staff recommends that the Housing Authority Board approve Avanath as the new owner and management entity for St. John's Manor and approve the assignment agreement and release agreement and authorize the authority executive director to execute those agreements and related documents as described in the agenda report. A representative from Avanath is also here this evening to introduce themselves. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions of Ms. Lee or the representative? I don't see any in the queue. Oh. Oh, you know what? If there's no questions, just quit while you're ahead. All right, I'm going to open up for public comment. Thank you for being here. I don't see anybody in the chambers. Anybody on Zoom?
Mr. Mayor, no.
Okay, close public comment. I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Harlan.
Yeah, I'll move staff's recommendation.
Mayor Pro Tem Mar.
Second.
Okay. So let's call for the question. I support the motion. Let's call for the question.
Councilmember Reynolds, please. It's not accepting it yet. Could you? There you go. Motion carries 6-0.
All right, our last item. Congratulations and thank you for coming. Our last item is new business item number 3.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Costa Mesa, California, ratifying Regulation Number 7 regarding temporary suspension of enforcement of certain parking restrictions in residential neighborhoods. Presentation by Mr. Seth Rahman, Public Services Director.
Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, this item is for restoration of no parking enforcement to enable street sweeping. So following COVID-19 pandemic emergency declaration, the city took several measures to assist homeowners during the stay-at-home orders. These include suspension of enforcement of no parking signs posted on certain streets and neighborhoods for street sweeping, as well as residential permit parking areas. This regulation issued by City Manager was formally ratified by City Council on January 19, 2021. So with the current status of the pandemic, the schools have reopened and the businesses have resumed more normal operations. So staff requests that the council consider a partial change in the previously issued regulation. So this proposed resolution restores enforcement of no parking signs posted to enable street sweeping only when during the time when a sweeper is present. The permit parking enforcement will continue to remain suspended at this time. So please note that the city, we have engaged in a parking study to look at the permit parking program, evaluate it, and develop some recommendations. And there will be a public meeting and a future City Council study session to discuss the program and propose recommendations. So that's going to come shortly. Staff has received multiple complaints from residents for the resumption of this no parking enforcement due to buildup of trash along various streets. In addition, we have the rainy season is coming up, and it's necessary to minimize accumulation of trash in storm drains. So therefore, staff requests that City Council approve the resolution to initiate the enforcement of the no parking signs only when a sweeper is present. We will be doing extensive notifications through social media, through website and other sources to alert residents of this change. In addition, there will be a grace period before enforcement goes into effect. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Do any council members have any questions regarding this item?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you can go ahead and speak, Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Stevens. And again, thank you, staff, for, again, the concise and brief staff report. It's very easy to know what we're voting on. I just had one question, again, for clarification. It's actually on an alternative to the staff report. On page 651, you mentioned that we had the opportunity to direct staff to study the postings of no parking signs. And the following line says there'll be a citywide outreach effort. I'm kind of just curious, what would the outreach be do we not know where our no parking signs are not posted in the city of Costa Mesa?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Chavez, this actually refers to a change in our current way of posting. We have a procedure now where we post only when there is a request from a residents and we go through a permit process, go through a petition process to put these signs up. So not all streets request to have these signs in place. The change that's being referred to here is to install these signs citywide, irrespective of our residents, whether they request it or not. So which means every single street in the city would be subject to the no parking during the street sweeping operation time.
I see.
So to do that kind of a program, that requires, we want to make sure that the public is aware of that change, and so we have to go through an outreach process.
Okay, that's probably, and I think just my council peers to hear this, I would be amenable to that. I know in my street, in my district, there's no sign that says when street sweeping occurs. I luckily don't have to deal with that because I have my own parking spot in my apartment, but I think it's something that we should look for equity for the whole city of Costa Mesa. But thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the other council members have questions of staff? I'm on discussion mode, so you just push your, I think you could push your
Okay,
mic.
great. Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the report. I understand the sort of the preference to study a little bit more before we deploy signs citywide, because I know.
Oh, sorry. My fault. Go ahead, sorry. You should be able to do it again.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate the sort of change to our previous policy about, only giving tickets when someone's actually impeding a street sweeper. I know one of the things we realized was happening in the past is because there's in many neighborhoods nowhere else to go, people would sort of listen to the street sweeper, run out to their car, move their car around the block, and then when the street sweeper passed, they'd park again. And then 30 minutes later, they'd get a ticket, right? And there was kind of this question of like, well, what am I supposed to do? So I appreciate we're not going to ticket those people in that situation anymore. That situation does require that somebody's home to move their car, or able-bodied to run out and move their car, not in the middle of caring for a child or something like that. And so what I'm concerned about is that there's still some hardships people might be dealing with, and I've been trying to think about ways to mitigate that. And I know that's part of a broader parking solution, which we're looking into. I'll come back to that point. One of my other questions is about this grace period you mentioned. So we'll do as much notification as we can, but we know everyone's not on email and social media and so on. We had talked before about having some kind of grace period so we're not surprising people too much, right? Going back into a ticketing policy after being off for a year?
Almost, yes.
Almost a year. What were you planning or thinking of in terms of the length of that grace period? I think we had even talked about, kind of for a few weeks doing warnings, right? Instead of tickets, like, hey, by the way, we're starting this again. This is not a ticket, but this is a warning that this will be a ticket, next month. What was the plan there?
So, Councilman Reynolds, the resolution says we start enforcement on September 15th. I would think we could start this, have the 15th through the 30th as the grace period, and start the enforcement on October 1. So I need to work with PD on that, but I think we can work on that.
September 15th is next week?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
That's too soon.
yeah. According to our resolution, we say we start on the 15th,
Okay.
but we can have the grace period till the end of the month.
Okay, can you also comment on a question similar to what Councilmember Chavez brought up, and in another sort of thing we recognized looking more closely into who was getting tickets? I think we discovered that, yes, there are some neighborhoods that don't have signage, some neighborhoods that do, and so our enforcement officers are only going to the neighborhoods that do have signage, right? So there's sort of an inequity there. I think we also found that some neighborhoods were getting enforcement every week, while others, even though they had signs, weren't getting enforcement. And it was kind of like, I got the impression that our enforcement teams are going to, where they're finding tickets, right? And continuing to go to those same neighborhoods. So do we have, as part of this proposal, a plan to, kind of rotate our enforcement activities to make sure that we're covering a broader swath of the city?
So Councilmember Reynolds, we did not specify that exactly to that level, but the intent is a citywide restoration of this enforcement. So they should be going not just in one area, one district, but in all areas. Because in the map that I provided earlier, we have no parking in all areas, but to some level, to a lower level in other districts. So all of these districts should be covered.
Okay. Is there a way, other than sort of expressing a desire for a little bit more equitable enforcement, is there a way to request that?
Councilmember, I'll commit to you and to the council that I will work with Raja and also with Chief Lawrence on how we're going to roll out the enforcement so that we're not having a disproportionate impact on any specific neighborhoods. And so we need to be enforcing the signage that we have uniformly. And so we'll put together a plan to achieve that.
Okay, great. And then I guess one last question before we go to public comment or other questions is, I know we're sort of coming towards the tail end of our recommendations from the parking study. Have we been able to look into sort of any prioritization of some parking solutions in the neighborhoods we know have received a lot of ticketing because of shortage of parking, especially on street sweeping days?
Councilmember Reynolds, that parking study focused quite a bit in districts 4 and 5, and part of their recommendations is coming up with these alternative sites that can provide the relief for parking. So once we go through that process, we'll work with identified properties, school districts, and such to see if there are arrangements that can be made to provide that relief for parking.
Okay, and I guess I do have one last question. In terms of timing of making those arrangements, what's a realistic time frame to be able to make some of those arrangements to provide some of that parking relief?
So we have to go through that study and make sure, get concurrence from City Council, get approval from City Council on the recommendations, and it depends on the school district and other partners on how easy it is to get through the agreements. But we'll start working on it right after your approval. We'll be reaching out to different properties to see if there can be those kind of arrangements made.
Okay, and when you say right after our approval, that would be the October 12th study session that we'd be discussing that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Reynolds, no, it's when you formally approve it. So October 12th is a study session, and then maybe in November we'll come to you for formal approval.
Okay.
It's after your approval.
So we wouldn't start pursuing any of those solutions until November at the earliest?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're on discussion mode, so if any other council members have any questions, just turn on your mic and fire away. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to, I guess, open up public comment. I don't see anyone in the chambers that wishes to speak, although there's plenty of time. I'm not rushing anyone. Okay, good. Anyone on Zoom?
Yes, we have one. Call-in user 3, please.
Call-in user 3, you have the floor.
Hi, this is Sandy Guinness. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we sweep our streets. You have heavy metals, you have petroleum residues, you have various toxic materials that will drain into the ocean or the bay if we don't sweep the streets. We have council policies in our general plan and otherwise on our priorities that we really care about the environment. We want a sustainable environment. So sweeping the streets is consistent with that. Further, it's required by law under Order R8-2010-0033 as amended pursuant to the Clean Water Act. Cleaning our streets is not optional. We got to do it. So currently where we have prohibitions on street sweeping, it's 2 hours. To me, I've never had to deal with finding a place to park, but it doesn't seem that burdensome for 2 hours. I do think the proposed enforcement scenario that's suggested here could be burdensome. What are we going to do? Have an army of enforcement officers driving around at 5 miles an hour following each street sweeper all day? That's clearly not practical. And really, difficulty in enforcement becomes no enforcement. So how's it going to be? If I have a house that hasn't been swept in several weeks and I call for enforcement, but the street sweeper hasn't quite reached my street yet, those people will not be made to move, or the street sweeper just passed, and as a result of their behavior, I didn't get swept. The people still won't get any kind of ticket. This is like the confluence of the vast planetary whatever to actually get the squad car or the enforcement officer and the street sweeper there at the same time. So there's basically not going to be any enforcement. And so really, you need to enforce. You can't just talk about it. And if the city is truly committed to the policies and priorities that you've adopted regarding sustainability, then you will make sure that the streets are swept. And I think it's fine to post everywhere, because if you're around the corner from a place that is posted and you're not, everybody's going to be in front of your house on street sweeping day. But if you do not really make sure that the streets are swept, then all those policies and promotions are pretty much just a boatload of the same proverbial waste material that you're potentially going to be sending into the bay and the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the Zoom?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, let's close public comment, and looks like Councilmember Chavez is ready to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move staff's recommendation with 2 added things. The first is to allow some sort of buffer time before we begin enforcement for education. I'll defer to city manager and to our new police chief for that. And the second is I'd like to conduct a citywide study on where we have no parking signs. Like I said, it is a big thing of equity, and I think it's important for us to know what parts of town have these signs and what parts don't. Thank you.
I'll second that. I don't have, does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I guess I'll first ask if if you would accept a friendly amendment to, as part of that grace period, sort of no ticket no sooner than October 1st?
I want to city manager. I'm not sure that's the sustainable date. I'm totally fine with that. I just know that's appropriate.
I think we are all on the same page that the intent is to give a grace period and to make sure that people are aware. I would rather it not be a prohibition, just in case we have a situation like an abandoned vehicle, right? Something that's a little bit more egregious. We want to be able to enforce on something like that. And so the intent is not to issue parking citations for sure, but I'd rather staff's hands not be tied in case we do have an instance of something pretty significant that we want to cite for and we want to enforce.
Okay. A case like that would be cited as a differently than a street sweeping violation, though, correct?
It would. It would.
Okay. I had a question on the second part of your motion, Councilmember Chavez. We have and received a map. So we have a map that shows where there is signage and where there isn't signage. I thought that was your question, to put together a sort of survey of where the signage exists.
My apology. I could polish up the language to be a bit more concise if you prefer it. I just want to do a citywide study just to see the effects of the signs and lack thereof. I think it's an important chance for us to really look at the inequities of their districts. Because like I said, in my part of town, there's not as many signs as other parts of town. So I think if we're going to be doing this anyways, might as well just look at the whole thing and see where we can find improvements.
So just to provide a little bit more information for the discussion, we will be bringing some information when we bring back the parking study on October 12th. and we'll present some options. We'll also share what happens in some of the other cities so that you can give us some feedback. You may decide at that point that you'd like to do a more thorough study, but I think we might have some good information that'll help with some decision-making next
Okay.
month.
You know what? In that case, since we have that coming up in a few weeks or next week, I'll just drop that part of the motion. So just keep the staff recommendation and allow a grace period.
I'm good with that as a second.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion? All right, let's call for the question.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, well, we've gone through our business. It's not even 10 o'clock. We did a lot of quick work here after all those presentations. And now we're to the part where if anybody on council has anything else they want to say, additional council board member committee reports, comments, and suggestions. Is there anything that anybody wants to say now that they didn't say earlier? I'm going to go back to mic control, by the way. Go ahead. If nobody, going once, going twice. Okay, good. Okay, so as we said at the beginning, we're closing our meeting and adjourning it in honor of and in remembrance of the 13 service members who gave their lives protecting Afghan refugees who were evacuating the country at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan. We're very grateful for their sacrifice. I just want to say a couple other things. Thank you very much to Alex Gonzalez, who suggested this. He's, as was mentioned earlier by Bobby McDonald, Alex is a veteran, and so I appreciate you bringing this up. And also, Evis Torres, we have a new policy when we adjourn meetings that each one of these families is going to get a condolence card from the city of Costa Mesa because of her work. So thank you in advance for that and the work she's done to create that card. I'm going to read the 4 Marines in California, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Mar, who's going to read the service members from other states. And of course, most people know that Mayor Pro Tem Mar is a Navy veteran and a graduate of the Naval Academy. So the first 4 from California: Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole Gee, 23, of Roseville, California. Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, 22, of Indio, California. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, 20, of Rancho Cucamonga. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem Nikui, 20, of Norco, California. Got it. Oh, sorry, Mike. Got it. There you go.
Marine Corps Lance Corporal David Espinoza, 20, of Rio Bravo, Texas. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, 31, of Utah. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Naus, 23, of Corrigan, Tennessee. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, 20, Jackson, Wyoming. Marine Corps Corporal Dagan William Tyler Page, 23, of Omaha, Nebraska. Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario, 25, Lawrence, Massachusetts. Marine Corps Corporal Humberto Sanchez, 22, Logansport, Indiana. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Gerald Schmitz, 20, of Wentzville, Missouri. Navy Hospital Corpsman Max Aviak, 22, of Berlin Heights, Ohio.
Amen. We're adjourned.